Liz, roll call, please. Present. Here. Present. Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Present.
Here. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before anything, I just want to reiterate that pursuant to Mass General laws, I am hereby informing all attendees that a video and audio recording is being made of the meeting, and the meeting is being shown live on the city's community TV channel. Liz, anyone sign up for public discussion? All right. Thank you. Moving on to student showcase.
Yes, I'm thrilled to welcome Donahue School here today, who's going to share they're going to share their artistic, their musical talents, led by their phenomenal instrumental teacher, Miss Adrienne Wade, who's been an excellent teacher in Holyoke Public Schools for a while, and joined by their assistant principal from Donahue, Mr. Tom Drowan. Mr. Swigert, principal, is actually at the South Holyoke basketball awards assembly tonight at Lawrence School. So, Mr. Drowan, we're in very capable hands with Mr. Drowan here.
Yep.
Thank you.
Can I just all introduce their names and their grades? Yep.
Wow. So real quick, just in case anyone has any questions, any of the school committee members have any questions? Mr. Kershane?
I was just wondering, are you all thinking about continuing when you go into high school? Want to go into the strings program? Are you going to stay? Who here is going to go to the Holyoke High North Campus, and who's going to Dean? North, Dean, North, and are we going to have the strings for both campuses?
Right now, we do not have strings on the Dean campus. We have strings on. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I shouldn't answer the questions that I don't know the answers to. Miss Wade, go ahead. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Awesome.
Nice,
Good.
nice,
That's
good,
excellent.
good. Congratulations.
Miss Hensley Williams?
I just want to say that we are very proud of you. Anything with music, I'm in love with it. So you guys just keep up the good work and you will go far. Okay, if you ever need me to sing for you, just let me know.
Anyone else?
I just want to acknowledge the many parents that came to support their children tonight. Thank you for being here tonight. Should all be proud of those of you who are taking photos in different places. And I just want to recognize that Mr. Swigert did come in. I didn't think he was going to make it from his event, so I want to thank Mr. Swigert and Mr. Drolan for their leadership at the Donahue School. And the last thing I just say is that this year, for the first time, I don't know, at least in recent memory, or my time certainly, is that we have instrumental music at all middle school grades, 6th, 7th, and 8th. So all students who want to play can play 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Some of the schools do have it in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, but universally across the system, Miss Wade and then our partnership with Community Music Center are providing instrumentals across the district for middle school. So thank you to all of you.
You.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you guys for coming. Pure talent.
Good job, guys.
Yeah.
Mr. Drone, when are you going to play for us?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I remember doing that in 7th grade.
Why didn't you?
All right, we're going to go ahead and move forward with the student reports. So, Mr. Perez, what is happening at the Holyoke High Dean campus?
And the Dean campus, everything is going good. Town hall is coming up, and I can't wait for it. We have been doing something. We've been passing around a wheel for shops for the town hall that they take over, and it's always something new, and I like that. And yeah, overall, it's going good.
Excellent. When's your town hall? Do you have a date?
Got the date. Huh? Oh, Valentine's Day.
How are you going to forget that? Okay. All right, excellent. Thank you. Miss Brunette.
All right, so on Friday, Representative Aaron Vega visited Holyoke High to speak to students about political advocacy and career paths, as well as food sustainability. Holyoke High School's varsity swim team sent 4 members to the Western Mass Fast Chance Meet with a total of 11 qualifications. And Holyoke High's musical Mamma Mia began rehearsals under the direction of Mark Todd to put on a show in late March.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And now moving on to Dr. Zreik with the Holyoke High School updates.
We're going to take things a little out of order. Dr. Mahoney's coming back from the Central basketball game. As you know, last time we played Central, we had a challenging altercation at the JV game, so Dr. Mahoney wanted to be there for the tip-off of the game at Central tonight. I was going to introduce our new Chief of Social, Emotional, and Behavioral Learning. You have his bio in your packet. He's been in the district. If you want to come up, Mario, you want to sit down next to Charlotte. He's been with us for about a month. As you know, many of us, we've been looking for somebody to lead our social emotional learning initiatives for now over a year and a half. It took a while to find somebody, but we found somebody who is local to the area, has done a lot of work in urban schools, mostly in the Hartford Public Schools for most of his career, and most recently with the Up Education Network. Originally from Columbia, Mr. Flores has been involved his entire career with behavioral and social emotional supports, both as a residential counselor, as a medical case manager, but then for most of his career in schools, starting himself at schools as a behavior interventionist in the Hartford Public Schools. Mr. Flores' office is at Peck School. He's expected to be in schools, in the field, as often as possible, supporting school-based staff and teams in our efforts to design positive school environments where all students can thrive. So I'm going to give Mr. Flores an opportunity to just say a few words about himself, and then if the committee has questions for him, he can take questions.
Good evening. First of all, it's a privilege and a blessing to be here in Holyoke. I've hit the ground running since December 16th, since I started. It's been quite an experience. It's been rewarding, phenomenal community. Everyone's been just very welcoming and receptive to the work, and it's just a good feeling to come into a district like this. The folks from the community look like family. It feels like home. And so it's nice to be here. I'll be charged with ensuring that we have a robust and comprehensive tiered strategy for social emotional learning and behavioral supports. I'll be overseeing the Department of Family and Community Engagement, helping out with our equity work, supporting the counselors at all the schools, of course the administrations as they sustain what they have in terms of social emotional learning and behavioral supports, and also making sure that we sophisticate our practice in those areas. I'll also be overseeing our BRIGHT programs, which is a Tier 3 individualized intensive support for our kids with the highest needs, and we'll be doing that in conjunction with our administrations and families. I'll be overseeing the behaviorist interventionist work at the district level, and a little bit of everything. And so I'm inheriting a lot as I engage in the work, and right now I'm just getting a lay of the land of where we are as a school district, as a system, and really look at what has worked historically and then what needs some tweaking to make sure that we're supporting our kids as much as possible, and of course our families and our community.
Great, excellent. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Flores? Whoa. Must have came well prepared then. Alrighty then. I don't know what to say from here.
I'm a little shocked, but they must be saving their questions.
Oh, wait. We've got a question, Mr. Wellahan.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you, sir.
What's your staff right now? How many counselors do you have? Do you feel that's sufficient? I mean, you're new, but I mean, is that sufficient for the size of our...
Right now, as it
District.
stands, we have 27 counselors across the district. I have 2 behavioral interventionists. We have about 11 folks that are doing the family community engagement work, a person that manages them, and then someone or liaison for the courts. I'm still trying to navigate and get a feel for what it is that we'll need. Of course, more resources are always welcome, but it's still a matter of auditing what we have and seeing if it's the best use of our staff. So I'm still in the process of kind of just figuring out where we are.
Okay. Thank you.
Sir.
Anybody else have any questions? No? I'll have a question. You're coordinating our trauma and mental health services. Can you kind of explain to me a little bit about what services is it that you're going to be seeking out and collaborating with, as well as I just want to make sure we're just not looking at elementary and middle school, high school. We're also looking at the transitions program. And so if you can just talk about that.
Sure. Right now, as we think about, let me try to hit it from a few different angles, because I think there are different ways to look at it. With regard to, let's say, crises as they occur, we'll be helping oversee that work in terms of what mental health supports are needed after something tragic or traumatic happens in the community, not just for our students, but also for our staff that are experiencing vicarious trauma with the stuff that our families and community are experiencing outside of the school setting. Within the school setting itself, right now we're looking at how trauma-informed care is really going to guide our multi-tiered systems of support. Right now we have folks that have been trained in certain areas of trauma-informed care and trauma-informed practice, but right now it isn't a coherent, cohesive system, and so that's something that we're going to try to build out at the Tier 1 level. So everyone will be getting some sort of professional development around trauma-informed care, what it looks like and feels like to be trauma-informed as a school system and as a school, each individual school. So that's from the systems aspect of the work. In terms of my staff, we're working on ensuring that they understand what a good comprehensive child study team looks like, that behavioral data and any screener data that we're looking at with regard to what trauma kids are bringing to the classroom every single day is being looked at, that data is triangulated, so we have different indicators that really inform our idea or our view of the whole child so that we can serve the whole child, and that is at the more practical level. Right now, we really need to explore where we're at and what we've done historically, and if it fits the needs of where our community is right now. So I think that overall we want to be a trauma-informed district, a trauma-informed system, and while we've done some pieces, I don't know that we have done it comprehensively enough to say that I feel confident that every school has done something very robust and comprehensive, and so I'm hoping that I can help with that work as a system.
So which staff so when we're talking about staff, we're talking about everybody. We're talking about cafeteria workers as well.
That would be the ideal, yes.
Okay. Miss Rosalie Tinsley Williams.
Yes, ma'am. I've actually, I believe in meeting people where they're at, meeting the folks where they're at. I was just at the event at Lawrence with the work that's going on there around perfect attendance. I've already started building inroads and relationships with some of the community-based orgs that are here. I plan on doing a lot of volunteer work outside of my regular scope of work, and that's what I pride myself on, is being a man of the people, for lack of a better term. And so, yes, I'll be definitely involved directly with the communities and families, especially taking an active role, being that I will help oversee that department. And so, yes, my plan is to meet families whenever and wherever I can.
Anybody else have any questions? Well, welcome to the Holyoke Public Schools. Welcome to our city. We wish you all the best, and hopefully you'll be connecting with agencies that are really working here with families, and it's just not a select few.
Just want to remind the committee too that the Bright program he speaks of is we hired 4 trauma counselors for 4 schools that we felt had the most significant trauma needs in the early grades: Morgan, Kelly, Sullivan, and Lawrence. And Mario's in the process, Mr. Flores, Mario, is on the process of onboarding those new counselors. They have a counselor and a para. And I don't believe anybody's started quite yet. They're about to start. And they'll be assigned a caseload of about 5 to 7 students within the school to give much more intensive supports in the schools where we've seen the most acute mental health needs of our youngest learners. So that's a big part of his work right now, is to get that work, get that off the ground at those 4 schools.
Excellent. Thank you again, Mr. Flores.
For having
Oh, wait, time. Sorry, Miss Burks.
Thought I was off the hook.
You
So
weren't.
how long before you're going to get that into all schools?
Well, that's as part of our funding conversation. We're hopeful that we can. I'm not sure all schools need a full-time one, but there are other schools. I know we're working out with Donahue right now. They'll be our 5th choice, and then I'd love to have that in every school. It's just a matter of funding. I mean, we also have needs at the high school. We need, Charlotte could tell you, they want more college and career counseling as well. So we have a lot of needs, both adjustment and guidance counseling across the schools. But this is a start.
I think it's really important that we get it in all schools. At least, have somebody in every single school, including the high schools and including transitions as well.
Yep.
And I think that should be a priority.
Well, I should point out that the high school, Holyoke High North, and Peck do have a model already through grants. We don't fund it. It's not funded through the operating. So really, we have 6 schools, and we would still have 5 schools left to go.
So with those funding pieces for those 2 schools being different, is it going to be everybody's going to be on the same page across the board? All schools are going to be doing the same thing?
I think there's a little nuance with regard to, just to give you an example, like the program at Peck, because it's a middle school program, and it's a different, while it's the same provider, it's a different funding source, and so the grant guidelines are different. My goal is to create cohesion, though, across all 6 programs. So the fact that I'm able to oversee all 6 programs along with Brookline Center will allow for a lot of consistency and continuity across all 6 programs, so they won't look vastly different, but they will be nuanced based on the school community and, of course, the middle grades versus what we call the Baby Bright program, or for the little guys. So there will be a lot of kind of cross-sectionality, and my goal is to make sure that they look pretty much the same, if not very similar.
So for me, a priority is making sure not only that we have it accessible in every single school, but also making sure that every school kind of looks the same. So our staff can all know all the same information across the board. That's just important to me, but it's really important that it's in every building.
And that's something that we're discussing with regard to school autonomy, is how do we give schools autonomy to have choices while also having some district initiatives that look very similar. So there's some foundational pieces that won't look different across, while schools could still have some freedom of choice and discretion in terms of how to meet their own specific needs. With regard to the Bright program itself, or programs that serve that high intensity need that our kids have, even if the other 6 schools do not have a program right now embedded, that doesn't mean that work is not going to happen in some capacity or some form. We're looking to build the capacity of our staff as we get into the equity the equity and trauma-informed care work. There will be folks at the school levels that will, at every school, regardless if they have a Bright program or not, that will be eventually skilled enough to be able to take on those needs. And I think ultimately our hope would be to not have individualized programs and have our schools be able to sustain and meet the needs that our kids bring to the table without having to bring all these additional programs in. And so right now it's just a matter of bringing in as many resources as we can to serve the needs of our children.
One of the challenges, Ms. Burks, to your point that I think is right on, is we haven't had good oversight of our counselors, period. And it wasn't until we've created this role that they even had support in place and common expectations. We've left our counselors out to fend for themselves, and that creates a problem in terms of consistency across schools, and then they also don't get any support. They have no one they can go to, and so that's the hope with this role, is that there's somebody that they that is their point person in the school district, which they have not had before.
I will say welcome. This is not an easy job, but it's worth it. So welcome.
So much.
Yeah, and just going off of what Ms. Burke said in respects, especially with the high school, because of dropout rates. You know, when you're looking at which students are dropping out, it's your 9th graders, 10th graders. You know, very rare you're going to get somebody from senior, but it may happen. So it's with the transition from 8th into 9th, and then if you've had that support before and now you don't have it, that's where you're going to have the problems. It's about consistency across the board in order for things to actually be effective. Thank you again for coming. Oh, wait. Look at that. Miss Brunel.
My hand before.
No, sorry.
I just wanted to make a comment when we're talking about the social emotional well-being of children, and like, you know, in your profession, and noticing how districts are getting tighter and tighter and more fixated on academics and less recess time and less free play, and you know, are we going to focus on that too, and helping kids to have that time to be kids instead of too much pressure on learning? And then I had another point, because you almost forgot me, now I'm forgetting it. There was a second point. I forgot, but I'll think of it at some other time. Sorry. But yeah, just to the point that it's important that we, you know, also give kids that chance to be kids. And oh, I remember now. Thanks. But social media these days, and you know, the trauma that social media can inflict on kids, and just teaching kids like healthy social media habits, and you know, limiting that kind of usage. And I think it's important that we're teaching that along with social emotional, and that was my point.
Yeah, and just real quick to touch on that, I think that as a district, it feels like, and it's evident to me that we're prioritizing SEL. I think the creation of my position is evidence of that as well. And as we think about the academic and social emotional learning supports, as like tomorrow tomorrow Wednesday we're at the state doing some stuff around the multi-tier systems of support. And as we look at the whole child, that all that stuff comes into place. So sensory walks in every school, and so it's something that we're not taking lightly, and we're being intentional around, and we're building the infrastructure to make sure that the SEL needs and behavioral needs of our kids are met, not just the academic side of things.
Thank you again. I think you're off the hook now. Thanks for coming. And are we moving to home?
Yep.
And we are going to welcome Mr. Mahoney with the Holyoke High School updates.
I think you have a question, or
Mildred?
Oh, I'm sorry. We have another. Mr. Perez.
I forgot to include something that
Go right
this
ahead.
Thursday we have a parent night for tours, the tour guide, people that want to see Dean, because we just finished. Well, we haven't finished yet. We have a school coming in Thursday to tour guide our school, but the last tours that we did for the 8th graders were pretty good. But this Thursday we have parent tours.
It's in the evening?
Yeah.
Okay.
4
to 6. We got it. We got it, Mr. Gates. You on point over there. All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Mahoney, you got the floor.
Thank you all for the invitation to come back. There we go. Thanks for the invitation to come on back here and talk about student performance under the high school redesign. We've brought a number of folks from our leadership team here. Lily Newman, Associate Principal, Curriculum and Instruction, sits to my left, and we'll introduce folks as they come on up. But we've got folks from both campuses, actually all 3 campuses. We've got teachers, we've got coaches, we have administrators, and we have some folks who are recovering administrators who are now supporting our work-based learning program. So we're excited to be here. And what I will say is that we're looking to go through a number of performance points for our students under redesign. I would hope that we're able to go through each of the components to get to the end of our presentation, and then ask you to hold your questions until we get to the end, and then we'll take whatever questions you still have remaining. Okay? Okay, so our agenda is pretty simple. I'll give a brief overview. Lily and I are going to talk briefly about our MCAS scores and how we're understanding those. And then Lily and Jake Belanger and Sheila Fallon will talk with you around how we are responding to those in our teaching and learning and our curriculum. Then I'll bring Mickey Buell up here to join me to talk about our graduation and dropout rates. Following that, Mickey and I will be joined by Megan Harrison, who will come on up to talk about our advanced coursework and our early college work. Following that, Al Gates and Lori Dennis, our vocational director and our associate principal on the Dean campus, will come up to talk about the Dean campus and growth we've had there. And then Tony Quinones and Efrain Martinez will join Lori and me to talk about work-based learning. And then Lily and I will try to bring it home. Okay?
I just wanted to make a note that I added a couple photos to the final presentation. I know last time that threw folks off a little bit, and then just synthesize some of the bullets towards the end. So we'll send you that updated PDF as well.
Okay, great. So last year was our first year of really implementing the school redesign, and much of that was focused on structures and systems. So we implemented the 10th grade academies. We implemented with fidelity freshman teams in the freshman academies. We had a whole look at our newcomer program and how we are best serving our newcomers and our ELL students. And then it was very much the first launch of our first freshman class on the Dean campus in 3 or 4 years. 100 students joined the Dean campus. And then we were continuing to build out our Opportunity Academy. So last year was very much about putting into place systems and structures, and also feeling out and trying to get a sense of where our students were and where our teachers were in terms of instruction, background knowledge, what their needs were, and how best to meet their needs. So in many respects, it was an implementation year around systems and structures, and a diagnostic year around curriculum and instruction. That said, you can see that our you have here our MCAS scores on the legacy MCAS. You all know that our English and math MCAS exams changed significantly last year. They changed significantly in how kids sat for the exams, using a digital version instead of a pen and paper for English and math. They changed significantly in the rigor of the knowledge and the skills that students were supposed to be able to display. And they also changed significantly in how we categorized student performance. So our old proficient and advanced, and that's what you see here is the percentage of students who scored proficient and advanced, were replaced by meets expectations and exceeds expectations. And those two, the two new designations, the new categories, are higher bar, I want to make sure I don't let my accent get in the way of that, a higher bar than the proficient and advanced were. Okay, so this is where we were through the testing 2017-18 school year. Last year, our 2018-2019, you can see that there appears to be, and there is, a significant drop-off between the proficient advanced scores for English and math and the meets and exceeding expectation scores for MCAS 2.0. Again, I want to remind you that not only were our kids taking the exam on a computer for the first time, there were more rigorous expectations for knowledge and skills, and a different categorization of meets and exceeding expectations. As a way of giving you an example for that, and then I'll turn it over to Lily and our team. In the old exam, if you scored meets or advanced, if you scored it proficient or advanced, you were able to move on through high school without having to do anything else with an MCAS exam or proving that you were ready to graduate from high school. If you scored in the needs improvement, so anywhere from 220 to 240, if you scored anywhere in the needs improvement, you had to continue to take math and English courses in terms of what's called a proficiency plan. And so this year, under the new scoring, half or more of the kids who fall into the partially meets category, which is not covered here, those students continue. They will not need. They will not need to take to prove their proficiency past their MCAS exam. So if you scored at 472 or higher in English language arts, you do not need to complete an EPP. And of that number, 74.5% of our students, 74.5% of our students scored at a rate that would be commensurate with proficient or above from the old exam. And in math, we have those students who got 486 or better. That was 50.4%. So these while these percentages are very real and they are concerning to us and they are our target, for context, please understand that the drop from proficient to meets is there's some context around that, and it's a little more complicated than apples to apples. So with that said, more importantly, what we want to do is have Lily and Sheila Fallon. Sheila, come on up and join us. Talk about what we're doing with English and our action steps. Lily?
Great. So similar to what you heard Mr. Flores talk about with social emotional learning, we know that we need a comprehensive and cohesive strategy for academic improvement. And spending last year really getting to know teachers and students and curriculum and instruction, one of the things that was very clear to us last year and in prior years was that teachers were not teaching on grade level. They had lowered the text levels and lowered the bar in the majority of our classes. All of our learning walks and curriculum reviews showed that we were below grade level in instruction. And that was a big red flag, because how will we ever get students to proficiency on an exam like MCAS that measures their grade level readiness and compares them to students across the state and the country if we're teaching below grade level? And so we wanted to make sure at the same time, knowing that many of our students come to us well below grade level. This year, 60% of our freshmen came to us in urgent need of intervention, that we need strong, robust core curriculum, but we also need multi-tiered systems of support, which you know are true across the district, and those gaps widen as students grow into the high school years. And so it's crucial that we provide those supports. So we worked very closely with teachers to review the highest rated curriculum for ELA and to collaboratively select Springboard curriculum, which is the College Board ELA curriculum, which received the highest ratings on ed reports for standards alignment and for the level of relevant, high quality curriculum that we want for our students. We reviewed the units in depth as a team and noted where we found that it really was culturally responsive and aligned to our community in Holyoke. And we've been making some adjustments for the 11th and 12th grade curriculum where we feel that's not true, but staying absolutely true to the skill sequence, because that curriculum has a 9 through 12 targeted set of skill instructional sequences that we don't want to lose. We don't want to pull anything out that might be a key lever. So we are in a pilot this year implementing that high quality ELA core curriculum. We are also working to refine curriculum for our tiered interventions. We have 3 tiers, including Wilson's and Just Words, that teaches our students how to read. It teaches them letter sound combinations, which we need even at the high school level now. And we also have teacher-led professional development, where we're using the STAR Renaissance assessment system and that tool to monitor our students beginning of year, middle of year, and end of year, which is being used across the district and helps us measure progress at the mid-year point to say, is our work getting us where we need to go? We also provide one-on-one coaching for individual teachers to support implementation, and we're starting to see some promising impact. We have Our courses are on grade level. Our learning walks show us that the types of questions, the types of texts and tasks are at the appropriate grade level rigor. We also have targeted strategies for ELs and students with disabilities or those who struggle that come through. Sheila will say more about the team process and how they're looking at their data and targeting specific instructional strategies to close those achievement disparities. We've got some promising mid-year results on the STAR assessment, with 54% of 9th and 64% of 10th grade class sections showing a growth of 6 to 14 months in 5 months' time. So in many of our classes, we're starting to close that gap of students who were below grade level, now in half a year making a year's growth, so that our hope is by the end of the year, we'll see in some cases 2 years growth and start to get our students at that high school level that we need them at. Our data inquiry cycles with teachers are helping them monitor student learning, not just beginning of year, middle of year, end of year, but during each unit, looking at student work from the assessments that they're delivering and targeting instructional strategies to address any areas of challenge that they're seeing. And Sheila can talk more about the specifics and what she's learning as a teacher and how this work is helping her improve outcomes for her 9th grade students.
They wanted us to wait till the end, correct? I mean, it's
gonna be
it's
a lot of
just going to
information.
be a lot of information and going and backtracking. So, I mean, if we can break in between and ask a few questions to get especially clarification, that would be great.
Science and math, and then stop there.
Okay.
What would you like to?
Math and science action steps, and then is it just on ELA?
On you.
So let them finish the math and science. That way, because it's all about action steps, in case there's questions in the other ones, then we're not going back to those two. Go ahead, finish.
Thank you. I'm Sheila Fallon. I am a 9th grade English teacher at the Holyoke High School North Campus. I'm also a graduate of Holyoke High School, class of 2011. So just to talk a little bit of what it looks like as a teacher, for what Lily just sort of mapped out for all of you, starting with that springboard curriculum that we adopted for this year. We had a chance over the summer to work across all grade levels to plan out the year so that we could make sure that there was vertical alignment across what we were doing as far as the ELA instruction and making sure that our students are where they needed to be for literacy. And with that new springboard curriculum, I can talk for myself. I've seen a pretty significant change in data. That STAR assessment that our students take at the beginning, middle, and end of year. Last year, my students at the mid-year point had showed half a year's worth of growth in literacy, and this year at the middle of the year, they showed a whole year's worth of growth. So in comparison, last year, students had moved up half of a reading level, and this year, students have moved up a whole grade level at the middle of the year, which is a big change. So that's doubled in 1 year.
What percentage? Never mind.
Sorry.
Make a note.
So what I'm able to do with that information with my team, and by my team I mean teachers that share the same students as I do in science, history, math, as well as foundations for our students with special needs or students that are in other ESL classes and such. We are able to actually look at the results and see what students have specific focus skills that need to be worked on. So we're able to talk as a whole team and say, okay, for example, our students need support in writing objective summaries. That's something that we can do in English, history, and science, and across many disciplines. So we're able to talk about those things. Okay, how can we include this in all of our classes? In math, students need help in learning how to read a graph. We're able to do that across the different disciplines. So that's allowing us to have that collaborative time and be able to plan together and how we can address those needs of our students. In addition, when we have our time in our English department, which we've had a lot more of this year, we're able to look at that data and make specific plans for specific groups of students that are lacking in a certain skill. If they're struggling to identify how a writer supports their argument, we can come up with specific assignments to see where they are at with that same skill in a month's time, so that we can see, okay, has this disparity been addressed? Do students have this skill now, or do they not? So that's just sort of what it looks like from the teacher perspective, and how this new curriculum that we've adopted really is working pretty well. It also leaves some room for teacher autonomy, so that, it's not like we're just using, a book and saying, okay, like, this is our new curriculum, but we're able to say, okay, like, these are the end goals, or this is the unit goal. How can I adapt this to make sure that it's relevant to my students still? And how can I scaffold for my students that do need that extra support to get to that end goal?
Yes.
Oh, wait.
Since we have Jake, who is the math department chair and the math coach here, who's really worked very closely with myself and with Tara Brandt at the district to develop the math strategy and plan, he'll share the steps we're taking and the early impact that we're seeing.
Hi folks, my name is Jacob Belanger. I'm a math teacher, math department chair in ILS at Holyoke High School. To address the achievement disparities and increase proficiency levels in math for all students, we are taking the following steps. 1, we have adopted the highest rated curriculum in illustrative mathematics that is teacher vetted and district aligned. The math department's professional development is teacher led and focuses on inquiry cycles that incorporate our curriculum implementation with a focus on research-based instructional routines. Our professional development has been partnered and supported by award-winning educators like Tina Cardone, the lead writer for the curriculum of illustrative mathematics geometry, Jamil Siddiqui, who's my personal coach, and Jamil Siddiqui was the 2019 Massachusetts Math Teacher of the Year. Mike Flynn joined us last year. He's the 2010 Presidential Award winner of Excellence in Math and Science. And our local post-secondary partners with Dr. Chrissy Von Raisinen and her team from Westfield State University. Our department was able to take a field trip there for a full-day PD, do some auditing of some college-level courses, as well as do a full PD with Chrissy to support our alignment with post-secondary partners. These partners have helped align our curriculum and research-based instructional routines to support all students in keeping with grade-level standards and expectations. As an instructional coach, I work with teachers one-on-one to support the implementation of these research-based instructional routines, unpacking high-quality assessments, and assessing and interpreting student data. Grade-level math teachers in Algebra 1 and in geometry have common planning time that focuses aligning their implementation, curriculum, instruction, and improving classroom data and culture. We have adopted and developed common classroom norms and habits of work and learning across all math classrooms that are modeled, practiced, reflected on routinely to help foster more independent learners in the areas of ready to learn, collaboration, perseverance, and mathematical justification. The math department has tangible plans to strengthen the collaboration between the special ed department to better align our grade level curriculum and research-based instructional routines, as well as the K-8s, to start preparing students with our math expectations prior to them entering the high school for the first time. In closing, the math department's greatest strength this year has been our strong collaborative structures and positive professional learning culture. Our mid-year data is showing we are gaining positive traction towards gap closing achievement from the work I have previously stated, and that we are committed to continuing. 75% of 9th grade classes average growth of 1 full year in only 5 months based on the STAR data. 60% of 10th grade classes averaging 8 months growth and only 5 months based on the STAR data. If this growth is an indicator of our projected gains in student achievement by the end of the year, I look forward to sharing and celebrating our students' end of the year data with my department, with the school, and our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Science. And I'll just share a summary of our science work where we have continued action steps to take, but we're doing similar things. We have developed a new 9th grade environmental science course and a vertical sequence from grades 9 through 12 that specifically addresses the areas our students are struggling in. We have science supports responsive to student need. So as we look at our data, we've developed a Thursday school and a Saturday school structure with science tutors who join that. Once again, we have teacher-led professional development and collaboration where our STEM coach works directly with the science department chair. Both of them teach as well, and they work directly with teachers to look at their data and go back into their curriculum and plan for their action steps. We have one-on-one coaching for implementation in science as well, and use strategic assessments like common midterms to track our progress across all our courses and ensure that students are receiving equitable supports and challenges, but that we're also targeting our third quarter to address the gaps we saw in the first half of the year. Some of the impacts there have really led us to fine-tune, and we have to continue to do this as we look at our data this year, but to fine-tune that environmental science course to ensure that we're addressing the gaps that our students come up to the high school with from wherever they've been in middle school, so that that course can build the foundation that prepares them for a robust year of biology and preparation for the 10th grade biology MCAS exam. We also have, there is no one science curriculum, so we've looked carefully at our academies and the courses that we want to be able to offer and done rigorous cost benefits analysis to select curriculum, and in several cases to leverage existing partnerships to help us develop that curriculum. So we have a partnership with an organization called Connect Ed out of California that helped us develop the theme-based academies. We're leveraging grant funds that fund that partnership to develop long-term high-quality curriculum that goes from that environmental science 9th grade course to the capstone type of experience we want our students to have as seniors, but using our grant dollars to pay our partners to develop something that will be sustainable for many years. And so one of the things that I'm very excited about with that is that we have a program, for example, Project Lead the Way, that starts us, we have in the STEM middle school as well, and so we can build on that experience students have had, but it starts us with an introduction to engineering and takes kids through a 3-year sequence so that they end with a capstone experience where they can partner with local community members to solve real local engineering problems. The 3-year strategic sequence allows us to build that content and skill over time that our students aren't yet coming to us with that. And so those are some of the pieces that are happening in science. We also, much like in math, teachers are really motivated and they're putting in extra time Mondays after school. The biology teachers meet for a content-specific collaboration. The environmental science teachers meet also outside of school hours to collaborate on their work, much like our Algebra 1 teachers and our geometry teachers are taking time to meet extra to align on their content area. And so those are some of the pieces that are at play right now and that we will continue to deepen. This is not a one-year strategy. This is a multi-year body of work. And it is upon us to continue to improve based on what we're seeing from students. Not based on what we think would be good for kids, but based on what we're actually seeing from our students and hearing from our community. So I welcome your questions.
Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and start with Ms. Brunel.
Okay, I'm going to work from science back because it's fresh on the brain. So one of the questions you were just talking about, formulating curriculum and where to go with sciences, and I just really hope that we're going to start to really focus on climate action and teaching our kids. You mentioned sustainability, and it's like, well, we're teaching them sustainability. You're worried about sustainability of the curriculum, but we need the sustainability of this earth. We should be seeing student projects in the school and science fairs based on getting rid of the plastic and some of the, all that environmental science, as you mentioned. So just hoping that we're really focusing in on that kind of science work. And then I heard a lot of talk about just our ninth graders not being prepared, and I get really concerned, and I guess this will go back to Dr. Dreich more often too, is like, why are we sending kids to high school not prepared? Like, what are we not doing in our 6th, 7th, and 8th, or in our K to 5s, that our students are coming to the high school so unprepared for English, math, science, everything. So, like, what are we doing? Like, are we just passing kids up to pass them up who don't know how to read? You shouldn't be able to make it to 9th grade without being able to read. And then some of my other questions were, we're talking about the strides and improvement, but like, as a member of this community, like, I'm not oblivious to what's going on with the teachers that are rallying at the city council meetings and sending us letters, and my own niece and nephew who are at the high school, and the discipline problems at the high school. So like, how are the discipline problems in the classroom affecting student outcomes, student learning? Like, what are we doing about those problems? And then I guess the other note I wrote was, in your collaboration sessions and focusing on your 9th grade curriculum, are we including 8th grade teachers? Like, are we bringing this work down if we're choosing such great ELA curriculum? What are we doing to ensure that our 6th, 7th, and 8th are going to be getting, if this curriculum's working, or all of that?
Do you want me to just answer the middle school piece, or you want to? Yeah, so I think you're right about the middle school. I mean, I've been pretty candid about my concerns about middle school for a while, and part of the reason we're making the moves that we have made around the middle school, going to straight middle schools, so that we can actually have a real middle school model, I think should go a long way towards alleviating some of those problems. We now have 2 bigger middle schools in STEM. Veritas and Peck is still a small middle school, but we have 2 larger middle schools. Until we have a true middle school model, I worry about our kids being prepared for high school.
But then why are we sending them to 9th grade, right? Like, I know we're worried about graduation rates and suspension rates and all these data points, but like, doesn't it matter more that we're sending kids that are prepared to be in 9th grade curriculum in 9th grade?
I would argue, the research is pretty clear. Like, retaining kids over and over is not what's in their best interest. I mean, I think we have tried very hard to make sure that we don't have 16-year-old freshmen who are definitely going to drop out. I mean, the research is clear, and it is an onus on the high school, and it is unfortunate, but that's why we built programs like Opportunity Academy, and we're working with Lighthouse, and we're working with Gateway to help catch kids up who fall in that. Now, it's not enough, and Mickey will tell you that one of our big gaps is what do we do with 9th graders who are really way behind, and that is still an area as a school system and as a committee you want to pay attention to, because there are a lot of 9th graders that are coming that have huge gaps, and we're not successful with all of them, and that is a place where that transition from 8th to 9th, particularly for kids who are off track, is an area that we still have to have. We have to have an alternative for those kids, which we don't right now. So I would agree, but part of the solution is improving the quality of the middle school model, and then having a better alternative for kids who are in that transition. And you're right, our 8th to 9th grade transition, not very strong.
I mean, we're not even hitting on American history, and I mean, I've heard how bad our 8th graders come into the high school prepared for that. So, we need to be focusing on implementing curriculum in the lower grades to help prevent this from getting, it's just shocking when you see the numbers at the point that we're at.
But if you look at the district data, our data is at highest in 3rd grade and 4th grade right now, and then it drops. And part of what we have more kids in pre-K, we've moved to more of an elementary model in some schools. We've had, I think, stronger curriculum work historically in the younger grades, and where you see the big gap in this system is middle schools. I'm just And I'm not saying that high school doesn't have areas to improve, but they are also getting a lot of kids. We're also remember, we're keeping a lot more kids in school, which is a good thing. But it doesn't. But where we need to get better is their achievement, right? So we need to make sure that they're achieving at higher levels. They're coming. They're not dropping out at the same rates. They're graduating at higher rates. The absenteeism isn't as bad, but they're not achieving at the rates that we need them to be.
I just wanted to speak to your point about the environment and climate change and all of those pieces. And I'm really excited about the environmental pathway we have at the high school that's very intentional. It's also very intentional that every student takes environmental science in 9th grade, not just to close gaps, but to create that awareness. Right now we have environmental science and in the 9th grade. We have an introduction to health and environmental careers course in the 10th grade for students interested in that pathway. We've put those two together for a reason, to help kids understand the opportunities in the environmental sciences. In our urban ecology classes, which is the 11th grade part of that sequence, our students are doing air quality tests on our campus right now, and they've got air quality sensors that they created that are all over the high school campus. They're also doing similar projects around plastic use in the high school, the single-use water bottles. They've been collaborating or contacting and putting some pressure on the public works around why don't we recycle in the schools and what can students do to be part of that beyond paper. And so there's a lot of really interesting activities going on that are community-based in the environmental component of it. So we will invite you all to the celebrations of learning around that too, as those projects culminate.
Ms. Tensley Williams?
This is for the 9th grade teacher. I taught a class on citizenship and leadership in the Young Marines not too long ago, and one of my concerns, the kids did not know how to spell. They did not know how to write. So the writing skills, we need to work on that, because how can they write theses and papers in college if they can't even write? And these kids were from 8 years old to 16-year-olds. So I have a problem with that, because some of the kids, they can't write. I had to write it for them and just initial that they knew the answer. So what about the writing skills? That's very important.
So for those students that do have that gap in their learning abilities, Lily talked a little bit about this. Especially for the 9th graders, we have a couple of specialized courses to support them in their writing abilities. So, and they're tiered. We have the Just Words program, we have the Wilson's program, and we have the Reading Foundations classes. So in addition to their regular English language arts class that they would take with me, they would also be taking another literacy course in addition to that to kind of try to additionally close that gap. The Wilson's and the Just Words is heavily focused on just those letter sounds and how to make sure kids can spell, general multi-syllable words. And in my class, they are doing all of the writing for the most part. They're doing shorter pieces of writing in the support classes, but in my class, they are expected that they're still going to write that 5-paragraph essay, argument, narrative, expository, all that, to prepare them for that MCAS 2.0.
Very good. Thank you.
Any
Ms.
other
Burks?
questions?
Okay, so it's pass. Okay. Mr. Kershane?
Hi, good evening. I'm wondering on the English language part of it again. Sorry to keep calling you back. But yeah. I wanted to ask questions right away, but I had to wait. So, there's 2 course options in 9th grade. How are you able to apply the springboard to this? You can take the ethnic studies English or the other English. Are you watching how students are doing in both of these programs? What's happening?
Yes, we are, and I'm going to actually answer it just because Sheila is really focused on her 9th grade implementation, and so her time is really consumed with that. One of the things that we did this summer was we had curriculum development and review processes for every single course. So for the Ethnic Studies ELA courses, we set up a timeline of deliverables, and people brought back their curriculum plans and their formative assessments, and we critiqued them against a common set of criteria, which I would be happy to share with you, that applies to our curriculum and level of rigor, level of grade level. And then those teachers are also involved in these collaborative sessions around looking at student work and planning in response. And you'll see that in our 10th grade ethnic studies class at the North Campus, students made really strong growth, almost 1 year's growth in all 4 sections. So that was a real positive. And in the areas where we didn't see that kind of growth, it's a one-on-one conversation with the teacher and coaching support to ensure that that curriculum that's getting results in some classrooms, but we're not seeing it across the board, is really getting traction everywhere.
Has it been tested yet with the MCAS? Have you had 2 years of it already?
Yeah, no, we have not. So this year is a pilot year for us with the Springboard and the revised ethnic studies curriculum. And so we will have a chance to see on MCAS this year that data around, we'll have the baseline from 2019 spring, and then we'll have 2020 as well. And that will be certainly informing our work going forward.
Can we see the data? So ethnic studies English has been in place for 2 years and has been tested. And is there any disparity between the ethnic studies class and the regular English class?
We really have to control for also teacher turnover around that. So for example, the ethnic studies 10th grade teacher last year resigned before MCAS came along. But what we're seeing, if you look at 2 10th grade classes, at Dean we do not offer ethnic studies ELA for 10th grade. At the North Campus we do. Those 2 classrooms had very similar results with really high growth. So I feel good that the content we're providing is strong and on grade level, and it's supporting individual teachers on implementation that we need to double down on.
I would just add, yes, we can pull some comparative data and present that to you with context, because it's a small n in terms of teacher. But we can certainly do that, and that's something we're very much interested in looking at the school level as well.
Yeah, I'm just concerned when we're trying to make up a lot of ground. It sounds like you have to have 2 separate programs to make up that ground, because you're covering. It's got to be different material. It's different classes.
Well, what I would say is that while the content may be different,
yeah.
Mary Brazo may not be reading the Poet X, and Simba Paskin is. So the topics and the content may be different, but the attention to skill is very much the same. And the MCAS, the ELA, is very much of a skill-based test than it is a content-based test. So if kids are asked to write, they're not asked to write about Great Expectations. They're asked to choose a novel that they've read, and then to respond to the writing prompt based on that novel. And so students could choose, 5 or 6 or 7 different novels, ones that they read in the course itself or one that they read on their own. So Charlotte may have picked up, a book that she may have read, Slaughterhouse-Five, and written about that as a sophomore, but that's not a part of our sophomore curriculum. So in terms of skill-wise, our English teachers, regardless of whether or not they're in ethnic studies or in the kind of more traditional English department, they work together at least once a month as a whole department, looking at student data and making sure that they're aligned as far as criteria and skills are concerned.
Mr. Wallahan. Oh, okay, sorry. Ms. Burks.
So, I'm new on this committee, but I do have a couple questions. So in the beginning, you started off by stating that our teachers are teaching below the grade level. That was a comment that you had made.
In the past, yes.
So basically, I guess my question for you is, a few minutes later, then you had said that our students aren't ready for grade level. So it kind of doesn't make any sense. And like for me, I was insulted hearing that comment about our teachers not teaching to grade level and that their expectation was low. That's an insulting comment for me to hear. because we have amazing teachers. And that's the way that I interpreted your comment. I took it as very disrespectful to our teachers. So that comment bothered me 100%, especially when a few minutes later you went back and said that our students weren't at grade level. So that's just, I wanted to make a clear statement that that's how I felt about your comment when you started. I am a little concerned that some of these things aren't going to be implemented and happening in the Dean campus because they are equally as important. So that bothers me as well. Yeah, one city, one school, right?
I would love to respond to that, to both of
One
those
more
pieces.
comment.
Absolutely.
Because you asked us to hang tight. And then one more was in regards to science. Everything's addressed here, but I'm curious to know what we're doing for our special ed students for science, because that's not addressed anywhere in this. But, those are my three things. And really, like, our teachers take a lot of hits. They shouldn't be taking them from administration.
Absolutely not. And we have very frank conversations about this at the high school. Actually, teachers have said to me, and I have the deepest respect for our teachers, which is why they are leading their professional learning. And my job is to provide them with all the resources and research that I have been privileged to have over the years so that they can soar. And that's what I feel like is happening right now. We have a teacher leader group of 20 plus teachers who meet regularly and dive into this work. But teachers literally emailed me and called me and said they didn't know how to measure the grade level of their text, so we learned that skill. And when they saw that and they started running their text through the Lexile measure, they realized that much of what they were teaching was below grade level, because as students came with increasing skill gaps, they were trying to find, how do I give them that just right text that they can access but is also going to push them? And I think what we got stuck in, which a lot of schools do, I've worked all over the country and seen this happen, especially in our high schools, is that so that students won't shut down, you've got your zone of proximal development where kids can reach just a little bit and be challenged and still stay engaged. If you give them work that's way over their head, they really shut down. So we talked about they still need grade level exposure. If they never hear phrases that come out of 10th, 11th, 12th grade types of texts, they'll never understand those types of complex words and phrases. So we talked about, how do you take a really short passage and you as the teacher read it aloud multiple times to kids so they start to hear that language. And we talked about other strategies, like if we are reading something around, let's say in science we're reading about life cycles, then we can start with a text that's right at our students' reading level, if that's 5th grade, around that, and start to build that academic language. And then the next text we provide can be 7th grade level, but they'll be able to access it because they have that foundation. And then we can provide that 9th grade level text, and they'll be able to access it much better because they've had the information 3 times, and they've started to build that jargon and that content-specific language. And what we appreciate about the Springboard resource is you can actually go into what's called Zinc Learning, and you can select your topic, and then you can select 3 texts at 3 different levels to get them up to grade level. And so it's really, I completely respect and honor our teachers, but the fact of the matter was they were also struggling to find the text. That is a huge challenge, to find an engaging text that's culturally relevant and appropriately on grade level and meets the prompts and the tasks you need to do. And they felt that having this curriculum prepared for them, that they could adjust daily, was the best way to have that backbone and know, okay, when I select this text, I know it's at the right level that I need. And the way we are, that conundrum that you talked about kids not yet reading on grade level, but us having to teach on grade level, is what we're living in every day. And that's part of why we have those interventions on the Dean campus as well. We have that foundations class, and next year we hope to add a workshop level, which is middle school level intervention, so that we're doing high quality core curriculum on grade level, but also backfilling those skills in the intervention classes.
Mr. Collmore. Oh, did you have a comment based on
Well, I was just going to very briefly, just around the Dean concern, Springboard. is the core curriculum for our English teachers on the Dean campus, and they are using that, and they are working with North Campus teachers on the implementation and the understanding of that. Illustrative math is the core. We're piloting that and using that on the Dean campus as well. And again, our professional development is cross-campus. And so Jake has all the math teachers twice a month for 2 hours, and they're looking at student work, and they're looking at curriculum, and Jake is coaching the math teachers who are there. The environmental science class is the ninth grade class on the Dean campus as well. So in those kind of cases, Dean campus is getting the exact same kind of curricular innovations and implementations that the North Campus is having as well.
What about the science, and what are you doing for the special ed or science?
Sure. So I think that one of the things that we've tried to do is to make sure that we have a special educator who is attached to each of our 9th and 10th grade teams and is working with those, so one per team. And working with those teachers to make sure that accommodations are being made in the classroom, as well as those teachers are the ones who are getting at either the literacy or the numeracy foundations classes that are part of a student's special services. Well, I could certainly kind of share with the committee how we've assigned teachers, but we definitely have special educators who are pushing into science classes. They may not be pushing into all 4 sections. They may be pushing into sections where there's a higher ratio of special education students, but they are definitely pushing into science classes as well as English and math.
Mr. Collmore.
Early on, you said 60% of the students coming into Holyoke High School are not prepared. Then you said that you've seen in just 1 year, you've seen a big improvement in what they're doing. Why aren't we immediately moving that back into the middle school concept so that this doesn't happen again?
What I do know is happening at the middle school level is they're implementing the same assessment, so they're tracking students similarly and monitoring their progress. And they are, and I know Dr. Wright can answer this better, but in my conversations with the humanities director and with our chief of instruction, they are also completely dedicated to these multi-tiered systems of support and to having the intervention students need to close those gaps.
I mean, we now have the same curriculum in middle school math and high school math. Now that it's the illustrative math is now a high school curriculum. It's the first time in the last 5 years that we've had the same curriculum for the middle school to high school. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat the fact that we have a lot of work to do to prepare kids going to high school. And the transition isn't strong right now. I mean, I'm just putting it out there. We are working on a couple of we're starting to work more closely with guidance counselors but it doesn't start in 8th grade. It starts when kids get to middle school to ensure that they are on the path to be successful in high school. We do not have a strong transition in the system. And if you ask me what something important is for the next wave of work is transition from middle to high school. All students, special education, English learners, we have way too many kids coming unprepared to high school. And there's a lot of catch-up work that has to happen. And then when you keep those kids in the system, and we don't push them out of the system, you're going to even have more students that you have to intervene for. That's a good problem to have, but it's something we have to pay attention to as we spend our resources. Yes, sir.
You had a follow-up question, Mr. Collmore. Go ahead.
On the counselors, why aren't we, or are we, watching these students every single day about their progress? Do we have counselors that right now know what their student is doing and what their problems are. Every single student in that school should be assigned a counselor. Every student. So that if the student has a problem, he or she can go to that counselor and talk to the counselor, and vice versa. If the teacher gets their records and sees some problems in there, they can immediately go and sit down with this student and talk to them and say, hey, you know, you have to sharpen up here. How can we help you do these things? Even if it's an after school or a Saturday, I don't care. But get these students up to par where they should be.
I think we have a great counseling staff, both school counselors and social and emotional learning based counselors, so adjustment counselors and folks who work with supporting programs like Gear Up and Upward Bound, our Restorative Justice Palante program, our student support room. So we do have a number of student support staff who are looking at constantly trying to stay on top of where kids are. We've just finished our first semester grading, and so now counselors are starting to pull out data to see which students are on track. So which freshmen are on track, passing all 4 of their core classes, and the Dean campus 4 core classes and their shops, and then which students are taking care of business. Whether that is, we're starting to schedule for the coming year, and so counselors are meeting with juniors now, looking at academic records, talking about aspirations, and then what classes fit most for them. But as Mr. Flores said, we could always use more counselors. And we're working on that very much as we look forward to the next year's staffing. I'm hopeful that we may be able to add an additional counseling position, especially for college counseling. Okay. Yeah.
Mr. Sheehan?
I have a couple questions. I don't know where they'll fit in, so I'm just going to go with the MCAS stuff. I mentioned it before when we met with you in November about participation rates, and your participation rates were pretty poor. Overall, and MCAS and for Access. I think Access you were only about 85% last year of participation. You only had 21 students make progress with Access, and for MCAS, I think your overall for math and ELA was about 87%. And when you dug into some of the subgroups, there were some issues. What is your plan for increasing participation, and what was your participation for the Access window that just closed?
That I can tell you that one of the things that we are definitely doing is we are trying to build in greater incentives for kids to come to school and take the exam, as well as take the exam and take it seriously. So on both the Dean and the North campuses, the teachers who were proctoring and giving the exams we essentially evaluated kids' testing behavior, and those kids that had strong testing behavior throughout, which meant not only just showing up, but actually working on the exam and not just putting their heads down or just kind of answering just willy-nilly. And so we just had a large celebration on the North Campus this afternoon, about 200 plus students, and ranging from students who've been with us since they were in pre-K to students who showed up and joined us just 3 weeks ago because of the temblor, because of the earthquake in Puerto Rico. And then on the Dean campus, we'll be doing the same thing the week we return from February vacation. I know that I don't have our participation rate.
So 95%. You were at 85 last year, so 95.
We're in the 90s. I just don't know what the exact rate is. Annie Day was doing that. You have to remember too that, and I don't want to put this, but we do we as Steve mentioned, we are hanging on to lots of students, but our average attendance rate for Opportunity Academy students is somewhere between 50 and 60%, and so we have kids who are not showing up or they show up for 2 days and then we don't see them again for a week. And so that makes it hard for us to get them in and to sit and complete those testings. So that I would say is the real piece that Mickey and I are trying to put our heads around in terms of how to grab onto those students, because that's the place where it's most egregious.
So
on our
you
campuses.
mentioned incentives. What were some of the incentives you just used to get students to come in and take access to increase that by 10%?
Well, I think the promise of come on in, show up, do a good job taking the test, and we're going to throw a party for you at the end of the test. And that's what we did this afternoon on the North Campus, and that's what we're doing on the Dean. Al, do you want to chime in, or?
Yeah.
I would just say another thing we're doing with that and with the STAR test is really coaching kids and talking to them about why it matters. So we have a lot of kids who say, well, I don't need to go to that ESL class. Regularly, students say that. And we've been talking to them about what access measures and why that data is important so that we can do our job for you and not have you in a class where you don't belong and have you in one that gets at the skills you want. So we have a lot more kids looking at their data. They looked at last year's access scores, set goals for improvement, and we saw a lot more kids invested in that. It was the same thing with STAR. It's a regular conversation. What was your reading level after STAR? And so teachers are getting kids looking at their own data and investing them in that way.
I think one of the things that we're trying to, what Liz is saying is we're trying to show kids that it's in their self-interest. If you want to take the dance class instead of taking the ELL class, take that test really seriously so that you can test out of being required to take a class. If you don't want to take the foundations class, test out of it so that we can move you forward and so that you can take an art class or a PE class or a business class or the dance class instead of taking the foundations class or the just words.
Yeah, and I also think looking at some of your digging into the data, I mean, what supports you providing for ELL and formal ELL? You only had, I think, 2 students either make progress or exceed for math and 1 in ELA. So what are you doing to capture those students and to provide the support so we have more students that are EL and formally EL?
One of the things that we're doing, and this is a challenge across the state, is really working on our ESL curriculum and making sure, for example, that our English language learning classes get kids to the level of ELA that they need to get to, so that we're ensuring that there's not just language development, for example, for our newcomers, but that they are taking a rigorous Spanish language arts class that gives them the analysis skills in Spanish if they are a newcomer student. But similarly, the ESL classes are targeting those analysis skills, those reading skills as well. So we've been doing alignment work, not just sequencing the ESL curriculum for the different levels, but also looking at Springboard and saying, how do our ESL classes similarly prepare students for those literacy challenges that they're going to face on something like the MCAS, and then being really intentional with vocabulary in math. And we've got more work to do there, but really targeting vocabulary across all of our math classes, because we've got L's in all of our math classes, and making sure that one of the things we love about illustrative math is it has rigorous vocabulary routines built into every lesson, which teachers were finding a hard time having time for with all the other things they're trying to address in a lesson. And now those routines are baked in there with the essential vocabulary built in. And so that's helping us as well. And we'll have to continue to monitor. We have grant funds this summer that the district secured to develop that curriculum with professional expertise as well.
So since this year we were able to get those additional vans, have you actually thought about calling up students and saying, we will come and pick you up, come and take and sit for this test? And is that a plan? I mean, I think we have the ability to have the transportation. I mean, have we thought about picking up the phone and saying we will come and get you right now? I mean, I know. Yep.
The fact is, we have the kids that are the most fearful of testing, have failed multiple times, and really don't want to take it. So it takes a lot of relationship work, but we are constantly going out to bring kids in.
Yeah, I know that's a tactic being done in a number of, especially gateway cities, but more I read articles about the last 2 weeks with access testing, but I think with MCAS as well. So it might be something like you and your team. I mean, each one of you take a day and call up kids and say, we'll come and get you to sit for the test or for the makeup to get them in there, because it really, I mean, the participation rate really is not good. I mean, it is not good for Holyoke High. I mean, looking at other like high schools in the state, I mean, Holyoke High has some of the poorest participation, especially when you look towards some of the subgroups with participation. And I think it needs to be more than a pizza party. I mean, it might need to be physically going, calling people, knocking on doors, and saying, "Come to school."
I'm eager to try any strategy that we think could work. I think we are all here to support our students and our teachers. But I would ask the question, do those other high schools have an alternative campus factored into their data, or are they separate campuses? As one high school with multiple campuses, the data looks very different at Dean and North and Opportunity Academy when you combine it all.
Absolutely, and that's a decision that was made by administration. It's actually probably something that some of the numbers at Dean right now are probably being brought down by some of the numbers at Holyoke High North. I mean, so it's, but that was a decision that was made, and that is something that it isn't changing going forward. So I mean, we have to kind of adapt to our situation rather than that. So it might be, I mean, Nikki's already talking about his teachers going out all the time and trying to find students. I mean, there are probably students at Holyoke High School that are chronically absent, that aren't attending, that could be capped, at least to be know that there was a touch point made to them to try to get them in.
I would just say that our attendance team is working really hard at getting the chronic attendance and addressing that as much as possible. Dealey Serrano and Jose Bo and their team are doing a really great job of making home visits and getting out to the families. But,
and I would say, too, just the comment before when I brought up the access participation, you mentioned Annie Day. I mean, it's not her responsibility. I mean, she may be the director of ELL, but as far as testing, it's the principal's responsibility to make sure the students are there doing it. I mean, you are master of your domain at the building. I mean, she can be a support, but it's not her job to make sure everyone has the test administered. I mean, it is the school administration's job. She has 8 other schools that she has to deal with, so it's right. But it's you mentioned Annie. It's you.
Miss Brunel.
So if we could just go back to ELA for a second, and we're talking about the different, the 2 different pathways for ELA. I'd like to get a little bit more specific on comparisons of how the 2 different classrooms work. Because you're saying that the standards and not the like day-to-day curriculum, but what they're learning and how many books they're reading perhaps, or what they should be writing on, should all be pretty equal. So I just wanted to know from you, if you're a sophomore at the high school and you're in ethnic studies, or if you're in whatever we call the other ELA, how many books are you required to read in each course?
Really, all the research has indicated that moving away from numbers of books matters, and actually focusing on high quality texts that you might spend more time with. So we don't really look at like how many books are you reading. If you look at the Springboard curriculum, that was one of our teachers' critiques of it, is that increasingly curriculum is centered around excerpts that are rigorous, and so there are places where teachers wanted to swap out an excerpt for the entire text. But we are looking at, are kids accessing high quality text at a similar rate, rather than looking at, is this a novel? How many novels did they read? That has not proven to have an impact on the outcomes for students, just looking at number of books in a course versus the level of rigor and what they're doing with the text. So we are continuing, though, to look at the equity between the curricula that we offer, and we can look at it through that lens, but the requirement we've set is that they have multiple exposures to rigorous, high-quality text in every unit, and that if the core of what you're reading is something that's high quality because it's poetry or something of a literary format, that you also have accompanying informational text on grade level that provides additional context. So I feel confident that the courses are equitable, but not necessarily centered on numbers of books, and more how much are kids accessing high quality text and doing rigorous tasks with it.
So are they not, is there not set number of novels, say that
there's no set number of novels.
Interesting. So what about like the classic American literature novels? Like, are we not requiring our students to like read these novels and like gain the knowledge of like To Kill a Mockingbird or, Jane Eyre or, I don't know, any of these novels that we...
Sure, we do have some of the classic literature, and To Kill a Mockingbird is a middle school text.
Using it's throwing out a book.
Yep.
I'm not saying that is
Yeah.
10th grade
And we
literature.
also, what our teachers have noticed and what they have said to me is, so in Springboard, the 11th and 12th grade curriculum pretty much follows an American Lit and British Lit kind of arc. And what our teachers have said is our kids engage much better with more diverse text. So where they might be reading The Crucible. We're still reading some of those texts, but our goal is to have kids reading and doing critical analysis. And so in one of our classrooms, they're reading Trevor Noah's Born a Crime, because that's a text that's rigorous and worthy and students are really connected to. Again, I would go back to our 10th grade ethnic studies ELA results and say students are jumping a full reading level with what they're reading. So it is adding value
I
to
have
their
a niece
learning.
in 10th grade ethnic studies who's texting me and telling me she doesn't feel challenged at all and that the books that she's reading are below grade level. So this is why I'm asking about 10th grade ethnic studies, because she's literally texting me as I'm asking her questions about it and questions that I want to relate back to you guys. And so that's kind of my concern with some of the pathways at the high school, is just that, she didn't necessarily, and I don't mean to use my own family as an example, but she's in it so she can set some context for me, is we're talking about kids not being on grade level or not being challenged, or, the kids that aren't on grade level. But what about those that are, and those that are past grade level? Or, we've lost a lot of our AP courses and our advanced courses, and, what about those students? So that's why I'm asking in comparison to typical ELA versus ethnic studies ELA. And then I'd like to go back to my initial question about how discipline is affecting the classroom and how discipline is affecting our growth rates and stuff like that, because nobody touched on it when I brought it up initially. Because we do hear a lot about the discipline problems in the classroom and how it's a constant disruptive, I'm sure not every teacher, not every classroom, but, how there's, constant disruptions and that there's no real consequence for actions happening. So, I'd like to know from staff as well that's here in the audience, if you'd like to chime in besides just administration, how are we really feeling on a day-to-day, hour by hour, about how the discipline issues at the high school are affecting how we're teaching our classrooms?
I just want to say one more thing, that if there is a book that isn't on grade level, then all the supporting texts are at or above. And in many cases, I'd love to talk to your niece more, because sometimes we need to address those with individual students and provide them a unique challenge. But if she's experiencing reading that the lexile is below grade level, we also measure texts on qualitative measures like word order can be complex. The topic can be complex. There's lots of ways to measure a text. So I'd love to hear more about that, but I also know you want to hear about the discipline.
And I'm happy to turn the mic over to Sheila or Megan or Jake around classroom discipline. The truth, there's too much classroom discipline. I'm not going to. We spend a lot of time managing students who are not who struggle to have positive academic behavior. Some of our we have focused a lot on providing faculty and staff support around classroom management strategies and techniques. We have some teachers who struggle with the same class, that if you walk into the next teacher, they're on point, they're on task, and their academic behaviors are really strong. And so it is a challenge for us, but it is not the kind of thing that is getting in the way of every kid learning. Typically, we have student support staff that come to classrooms when there are issues. They're generally low-level kinds of things. Students who are on their phones, teachers have asked them, can't be on your phone in your classroom, so you give it to the teacher. The kid says no. Someone from the admin team, it could be an assistant principal, it could be someone on student support, will go to the classroom and say, Sheila, you need to give me your phone, you'll get it at the end of the day. Please go back into the classroom and learn. So those, we have some low-level kinds of things where we're supporting teachers. And then, we do have some students who have a really hard kind of chronic time of dealing with being in an institution like school, and so we're constantly working with them to help them, learn and grow, and ideally access, the teaching and learning that's available to them in the classroom. Sheila, do you?
So just to kind of talk about it from the teacher perspective, I can tell you that being a ninth grade teacher, being on a team of teachers has been immensely helpful with classroom management. For example, starting with semester 2, we noticed on my team as the semester 1 came to a close that we felt like students were becoming a little bit more lax in awareness of taking out their cell phones in class. So as a team, we decided, okay, semester 2 starts, we are implementing across all of our classes, no exceptions, students are turning in their phones at the beginning of class, or it must be zipped into their backpack. And since we were consistent across all of our classes, it's been very successful. We've had a couple of instances where students have had their phone peeking out of their pocket, and they're not on it. But we set the standard to begin with all of them at the beginning of semester 2, that even if your phone is seen and it's not zipped into your bag or in the designated area of the classroom, you are going to be sent to administration. So for those students, even if it is peeking out of their pocket in the middle of class, we send them out and it's taken for the day by administration. And since we set that boundary, students have been really responsive to it, and it's become far less of an issue in the last couple of weeks. In addition to that, the habits of work and learning that we have in our classrooms, in ninth grade, it's 20% of their grade in every class. How responsible they're being, how ready to learn they are, and how well they're collaborating. And they're graded on one of those 3 particular habits each day. So that's made a big difference too, because they know, okay, if Miss Fallon sees me take out my phone, this is going to impact my grade, because I'm not showing that I'm ready to learn if I'm more focused on the Snapchat I just got. So that's been something that has been positive as far as classroom management and classroom discipline. And ready to learn touches on a lot of different things, not just cell phones, but I'm using that as an example because it's something that most teachers face in some way. Is there any specific questions that you have about discipline in class?
It's just in general, you hear, because, and I'm not encouraging we suspend kids, don't get me wrong. I'm glad that we're keeping kids in the building. I'm glad that we're doing everything we can to not, to have our building as full as possible, encourage kids to be school. And, when we ever suspended kids for being tardy, it's crazy, right? I'm glad we have kids. But, you constantly hear that, it's soft at the high school. It's soft. There's not, that strong, somebody walking around the hall and making sure that everyone's kind of in check and doing what they need to do, and there's no true consequences when you break the rules. And sure, we're taking phones, but are we calling their parents to let them know we had to take the phone? I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying, it's extremely frustrating when you constantly hearing about, and not just from people, students I know in the building, but staff I know in the building, and people whose children maybe no longer go to our system for these reasons, right? And it's just, so I just want to bring it up to make sure that, because we never touch on it. We're always talking about growth and what we're doing and what we're doing and what we're doing. We never talk about discipline, and we never talk about the fact that it's a real elephant in the room, I feel like, especially to students who don't have a discipline problem. And, someone else's discipline problem is taking up 30% of, the airtime in that classroom or something, so.
Yeah, so
bring it up.
Something that we do focus on is this, discipline issue impacting the learning of other students in the classroom? And that's the point that we know that student needs something else at that moment, that they cannot remain in the classroom if they are impeding the learning of another student in the room.
Well, thank you. Rosalie, go ahead, ask your question so we can go ahead and continue on with the rest of the presentation.
I'm going to change the subject for a minute. Dr. Mahoney, who put this
Oh, Rosalie, we ain't there yet.
Oh,
we're not there yet.
We
So
will get there.
we're trying to.
Oh.
We're trying. Okay. So moving along, could you?
Great. Yeah. So we want to. Mickey, can you come on up and join us? Mickey Buell, Executive Director, Director of the Opportunity Academy, and you can see that in the 2 charts that you have here, both the graduation rate and then again the dropout rate.
And really quick, we're going to hold our questions till they finish their presentation.
Great.
Go ahead.
Thanks. much of the gains here have been due, in large part, as Steve said, we're hanging on to, as Dr. Zeig said, we're hanging on to students longer, and because we're hanging on to students longer, one, we're getting them across the finish line more, and we're preventing them from dropping out of school and all of the life consequences that being a high school dropout signify. So I want to just give the mic to Mickey for a quick minute for him to talk a little bit about that.
Just so you know, the updated dropout and graduation rate will be out, we believe, on Friday for last school year. It's embargoed, but it will be out, we believe on Friday. And I will just say that it's still headed in the right direction. That's all I can say. You'll find out by the end of the week. You're on, Mickey.
All right. So I think I've gotten to talk to the committee in prior years about the development of Opportunity Academy, and it was pretty interesting to get to listen to the part of the presentation about the core, kind of the guts of school experience with curriculum and professional growth and teaching and the growth of students moving along. And we knew back when we first started the high school redesign that stuff, the guts of school, had to really be addressed, and I'm really, really excited that they're being addressed in positive ways. But right away, what Steve says, like, we got to go after the graduation and dropout rate immediately. We have too many kids who aren't making it in our high schools, and the fact was that if you weren't making it in Holyoke High or Dean, there really were no real alternatives. That students had to drop out, and it wasn't that long ago that our dropout rate was 10, 11%. And our graduation rate, it's not that long ago that it was below 50%. So I think there's no question that these, in many ways, are kind of the ultimate measures of high school, continuing in school and graduating, and they're definitely moving in the right direction. I think our scale there maybe understates the growth, but in the first 2 years the high school redesign was implemented, 10 percentage point increase in graduation rates, with really substantial graduation rates for the populations of students that traditionally perform worse. That's big progress. Dropout rate. So the dropout rate is really falling. And I think Steve's right. I anticipate this not only to continue to move in the right direction, but I think the line is going to get steeper in this last year. We've made an enormous difference of giving students opportunities to continue towards a path to graduation, even when they get knocked off track in their high school path. And it's working.
And I would just back to Mr. Collimore's question about school counselors. I think that our school counselors have really doubled down on identifying kids who are starting to go, head towards dropping out or not graduating on time, and really, building up interventions for those kids, whether that is credit recovery that's campus-based on either the Dean or the North Campus, whether that is family intervention, whether that is looking at their schedules and making sure that what they're scheduled for meets their needs and their interests, as well as coordinating with Opportunity Academy. One thing that you should know about Opportunity Academy is that it is except for one exception over the last year and a half, it is 100% a student and family choice to move to one of the three programs that are housed under Opportunity Academy, whether that's the Gateway program at HCC, whether that's the Success Center, or whether that is the Lighthouse School down on Ray Street. So we're really, that speaks to the level of support and counseling kids are getting. To either make a decision about, no, I want to stay, I want to try and make it work at Dean, I want to stay and try and make it work at North, or, yep, I think you're right, I need something different so that I can move forward with my education. Yeah, one last thing.
Yeah, one other thing to note: the dropout rate going down at that kind of angle is a really good indicator of future graduation rates. Right, so you could say that the dropout rate is a leading indicator of future graduation rates, and it is very reasonable to say that we should be expecting a continual increase in graduation rates. Never smooth, but it's by keeping students in the system, giving them paths to a diploma,
working on this a really individualized support plan to help them make it. We're going to get more kids across the finish line as well.
So Mickey's been instrumental on the Opportunity Academy part, but he's also been a key player in our advanced coursework, in our early college and dual enrollment expansion. But even just as key, if not more key, has been Megan Harrison, who's been our lead teacher in terms of developing both the supports and the recruitment and for kids to take advantage of advanced coursework. So I'm going to turn it over to Megan as we look at the next 3 slides.
Thank you. All right, so enrollment in advanced coursework has nearly doubled since 2015. And in addition to AP, dual enrollment and early college gives students an opportunity to earn high school and college credits at the same time, as well as expose them to the college experience so they see themselves as college students. If you guys haven't seen the Republican from yesterday, there's a great article on our Westfield Promise kids. It's not on Mass Live yet, but it should be out soon. This can increase the chances of students feeling confident in their ability to be accepted into college and successfully navigate a college campus, which you guys know can be a whole new world for our kids. So we also have Dean campus students who are now eligible to and participating in, dual enrollment. 17 kids, about half the senior class, are now taking a dual enrollment class on this campus, which is awesome. This year we're at an all-time high of 345 kids taking a college course or an AP course. Additionally, these programs are increasingly enrolling more of a representative student population that more clearly reflects our school's demographics. So in school year 14-15, these classes were 39% Latinx and 58% white. And in school year 19-20, we're enrolling 68% Latinx students and 28% white students. So we're really opening doors for kids who have been traditionally underserved in our advanced classes.
This is a particular point of pride for both Megan and for Mickey and everyone who's involved in that program, from Joe Corshane and Kevin Bashard to our partners at Westfield State and at ACC. Equity and excellence were the 2 goals for our high school redesign, and this is a huge marker of making progress towards equity for opportunity as well as for performance.
So this slide shows that students earning college credit or 3 or higher on an AP exam, which is a passing score, right, has nearly tripled over the last 5 years. In school year 18-19, 257 students either passed the AP exam with a 3 or higher or earned college level credits. So really, like, the big picture we're seeing is that kids are graduating with a number of free college credits, and many of them already see themselves as college students.
And I would just, point that remember that green represents students who are taking both a college course and an AP course. And so we've got multiple kids, so they're not mutually exclusive. Being in the early college program or being involved in dual enrollment does not preclude you from taking an advanced placement class. Add about that?
Yeah, a lot of our early college and dual enrollment students are taking both because both are very valuable experiences.
Great, good. Okay, so I want to ask Al Gates to come on up here. For those of you who have not met Al before, Al is the associate principal on the Dean campus. This is his 4th year being on the Dean campus. Al, as anyone who knows Dean, has been instrumental to the turnaround that you can see and feel, touch and hear and taste, literally taste, when you come onto the Dean campus. And he's going to walk you through this slide.
Good evening, members of the school committee, and Jay Vaughn and Charlotte. Hello, Dr. Shrike. So yeah, I'm glad to be here tonight, and excited to take you through some of the work that's happened on the Dean campus over the past few years. Back in the school year 17-18, our enrollment was just 150 total students, and that was in grades 10 through 12. In 2020, this year, we're with 9th grade. Back on the Dean campus, we are at 270 total students, and wait list for both 9th and 10th grade, with 11th and 12th grade being smaller classes, just based on the first couple of years of the work.
How many
37?
37.
37 seniors and 35 juniors.
No questions.
So when you talk percentages, you know, you're talking about 37 kids. All right. So our anticipated growth, 2021 will be 350 students, and then the following year we look to be above 400 total students. 45% of all students are earning honors credit in at least one course. 100% of our ninth graders are enrolled in ethnic studies. That's both history and English, this being our first year with the English curriculum. And then 53% of seniors are in dual enrollment. 76% of our ninth graders are on track. That means that they're passing all their core classes. Yeah, and just 76% right now. Last year, our ninth graders, by the end of the school year, we were at 98% of all ninth graders on track. So that's, you know, the goal is 100, but we're at 76 right now. 63% of grade 9 and 10 students hit the benchmark for student growth percentile for the mid-year STAR testing in reading and math. So as it's been spoken about tonight, on track to have 1 year of growth or more, and in many cases more, and that's 63% of our 9th and 10th grade students.
I would just add, we've brought a Gear Up advisor on over to, and an Upward Bound advisor onto the Dean campus. You know, one of the key pieces about the redesign was not only revitalizing vocational education, but also making sure that there was equity of opportunity, academic opportunity, and support for students who go on the Dean campus. Now, equity doesn't mean the same. Right, so staffing-wise, we're limited in terms of, you know, we're more limited in what we can offer on the Dean campus academically than we are on the North campus. So students don't have currently the option to take a foreign language or music and theater. So as we grow out and as our enrollment grows out, we may be able to afford more elective teachers than right now we have one elective teacher, and that's physical education. But as we grow and ultimately we're looking at being somewhere between 430 and 450 students on the campus, we're hopeful that we'll be able to grow at least a couple of other electives that are available to the students. But as we explain to students and to families, their electives are their shops. Right? That's what they're electing into. And that's where we're putting the staff, and that's where we're putting the dollars around electives. So they have the core classes, and then they have their shops. Great. And a reminder, we have 9 shops, and they are, we have one or two shops that are struggling with enrollment, but we're seeing really good trends in this year's 9th grade, and we're confident that those shops will be able to rebound from low enrollment. Good. Al, anything else you want to add?
Just one thing that's really important. Students, you talked about your niece texting you, and Javon can speak to it. We really, student voices it's important on both campuses, but we're small enough. We're really taking into account what students are asking for, and that drives a lot of our decisions. So, for instance, our 9th grade, all 4 classes are ethnic studies history right now, but we polled our 9th graders, which are now 10th graders, and Javon's in 10th grade. 50% of them had asked to go into a traditional track, so we offered 2 traditional track U.S. history and 2 ethnic studies. So really students driving the decisions, and being smaller, you have that opportunity. So, and yeah, there's a lot to talk about, but I'll stop there.
So I want to ask Tony Quinones and Lori Dennis and Efrain Martinez to come on up here and talk a little bit about our work-based learning programs. Efrain, you may have to pull a chair up.
Okay, let's ask questions.
Or you may stand. Okay, all right, great.
I'll move seat.
No, we're good.
No, there's a seat right here.
Left.
Yeah, hello. My name is Tony Quinones. This position was created this year, and you can notice from the slide, that's why we don't have numbers for last year. I guess, but for this year, we have 67 students placed in various partners, like at the Holyoke Medical Center. We have 11 students placed there. We have students at Sodexo, which is our cafeteria. These two students that are pictured here, one is actually from the Opportunity Academy, which is Ashanti and Angelique. They both intern at the Homework House, where they go after school and help fifth graders with their homework. We also created a new course, exploration, a career exploration course, and a career readiness course. We called it Next Step, Próximo Paso, and it's under Propel America. Was that a foundation or a? It's a not-for-profit organization.
So Propel America is a not-for-profit organization that is working with several districts, 4 or 5 districts across the country to find a third way. That's their language. To find a third way. So there are some students who, upon graduation, like, I'm going to work. And then there's some I'm going to college, and then there's some like not sure. I think I need a little bit more college, but I don't want to do the whole academic piece. And so they've got a pathway that students in this course that Tony's teaching, upon graduation, they can apply for a fellowship where they would get an all expenses covered enrollment in the photonics program at STCC for 8 months. They'd get a stipend while they're there, and then upon completion of that photonics program, they would have guaranteed interviews with 3 partners, regional partners, who are looking for laser technicians. And those laser technicians start at $45,000 to $47,000 a year. So we have students who are 18 who, if they do the whole program, when they're done with the whole program, they have a starting salary of north of $45,000.
And then finally, other things we're doing in our office is we've been coordinating reverse job shadows. This is something we do with our 9th graders. We've had 2 so far, one for the general public, and since we didn't have a chance to do it for the newcomers, we actually did one 100% in Spanish for the newcomers. This was passed on February 4th. And I want Efrain to actually talk about this because he was really key in organizing these reverse job shadows.
Reverse job shadows is an experience in which somebody comes and talks about their job. So it's shadowing that job by the person coming to the talk to mostly the 9th graders. 9th graders will take in 10th grade the decision of going into 3 types of pathways, and we do have the job shadows reflect those possibilities of those pathways. But that is the way we introduce the idea of internships, the ideas of visiting job sites and field trips. You see, we teachers can do the same thing for 40 years without much change, but our students have to be exposed at what is out there that could call their attention and help in their goals and therefore the graduation rate. Of those 67 students who are in different internships, some very, very interesting, I will say there are 7 of them who are focused and would have been focused even if they didn't have an internship. Actually, they came to us and say, I want to do an internship at the Therapeutic Equestrian Center, for example. And that's because this particular one person, then now we have 2, wants to have a future in that field. But the rest are people who never thought about a different, seeing themselves in a job, and this experience gives them the opportunity to even get fired if necessary. But now, rather than when they're 20 years old, or to discover if it is one of the 10 students who are at the Holyoke Medical Center that they cannot stand this side of blood, and therefore their thought about going this way have to be re-evaluated. On the other hand, some learn that to be a phlebotomist, it only takes 1 year and a certificate, and to be some type of technician takes 2 years, that you don't have to commit to a whole 4-year degree. And all of a sudden, we see them applying themselves to work and therefore finishing school and therefore helping with the graduation rate.
Sure. I'm Laurie Dennis from Dean Campus, and I'm the vocational director, new this year on July 1st.
So we've got 18 students out, either half out and some on their way out to, we've got electric companies, builders, restaurants, salons. Sodexo is about ready to take on a few of our kids right in our cafeteria. We've got practicums in our health assisting programs. We've got 15 10th graders who are going out to Head Start to start generating 70 of their 150 hours that they're going to do for their CNA training. We've got 6 of our 11th graders going out to Renaissance Healthcare to start their practicum. In fact, tomorrow they start that. That's all set up. In culinary arts, we have 10 students who are interning with Head Start as well, a different part of Head Start, doing the Healthy Families dinners. They're going to be doing that twice a month, starting at the end of this month through the end of the year. We've also got 10 carpentry students who will be starting at the end of April, who will be working in, I believe it's Gardner, at the Carpenters Union, to do days of work with them the whole day. This year, in revitalizing the vocational programs, we've put together really comprehensive curriculum based around the Massachusetts frameworks, incorporating all of the 6 strands. Therefore, in having that, we are able to take part in all of the articulation agreements across the state. So our students will be earning college credits just by taking their classes.
I just want to strike, and then Lily and I are going to do some summing up, but that this work-based learning piece, both under Lori's direction as vocational director, and then under Tony and Ifane's leadership with the work-based learning program at the, part of the redesign is to answer the question, when am I ever going to use this? And for television producers to come in for our newcomer reverse job shadow and talk about the kind of the corollary to the academic behaviors that we're expecting, being able to look people in the eye and answer their questions, and to be on time, and to be prepared, and to be able to work well with folks, and to look for solutions and not blame, all of those things. To hear that from someone else, and not just a teacher or a parent, has a really powerful impact on our students. And so getting them out in the field and having them rub shoulders and learn from adults who are not necessarily the folks who are in the school is super important to giving our kids both incentive and reinforcement for, this is why you do a good job in school. These are the opportunities that are there for you. Thanks, guys. Lily, you want to come on up and we'll So we do, as we've talked about, we have mixed results under the accountability system. There are some things that we can be proud about in terms of areas of strength. There are some places where there's some improvement, but it is below what our targets are, and it's not enough improvement. And then there are some areas of real concern. And what I hope you're getting from us tonight is that those areas of concern and those places where we're below targets, they're very much front and center in the work that we're trying to do on all 3 of our campuses. Lily, you want to talk a little bit about the progress to celebrate?
Sure, and this is just a summary of what we've talked about: improved graduation and dropout rates, continued financial and organizational support from the Bar Foundation, which is helping us to accomplish a lot of our goals, multiple campuses and opportunities for students to continue learning beyond the traditional high school program, more robust learning experiences in and out of the classroom, and theme-based academies at the North Campus, and strengthening of our CVTE programs at Dean to provide rigorous, meaningful, and real-world learning. We still have more work ahead.
Great, and so that work ahead, we are building and strengthening our interventions that are in targeted work with students with disabilities and our English language learners. We've invested a lot of time and energy into developing our teachers' SEI strategies. We're working on the ESL curriculum and course sequencing are all parts of what we're trying to do to get at those subgroups. We have started hiring teachers now for next year. In the last couple of years, we waited until too late in the spring, and so I have a biology, environmental science teacher who's moving to Western Mass that I worked with in Chelsea. He is going to be on the phone with us tomorrow or Wednesday. And if he's willing to come on out, I'm ready to hire him now for next year, knowing that we will have some vacancies in either our 9th or 10th grade science classes. So we're jumping on that right now. And Lily is leading that, and we're really trying to include students and teachers in that process so that when teachers come to us, they have a real sense of, they've been able to talk to lots of folks and not just, the principal. We are continuing to work on our data cycles within departments and professional learning communities, doubling down on the coaching, and then where Lily and Saskia Fabricant and Nisette Gonzalez and the ELL team and the special ed teams are working on strengthening our support for those students. So that's where we are. Thank you for holding those questions, and we're ready to take your questions.
Ms. Brunel.
Some of my questions got answered by waiting, so what do you know? The only thing I really wanted to ask is how many AP or advanced courses are we still teaching on campus?
The exact number of courses I would have to rattle off or go through that program of study to say. What I can say is that we are running 2 AP Englishes still. We have AP US, AP Euro, AP World. Based on student enrollment, we intend to run AP Environmental. We had originally said we'd either run AP Physics or AP Bio. We're going to go based on where students enroll and where teachers recommend. So if we can run both, we want to run both. And then we're adding AP Statistics back. My understanding was that we had it years ago. We also had it at the Dean campus. So we're going to be adding that back. And we have a robust partnership with Mass Insight Education that the district has supported so that our teachers are getting out to trainings all year. And we're getting folks coached and getting to trainings this spring who may be up for teaching those courses in the fall.
So the number right now is 9 courses.
Did I hear any English language like?
We offer AP Lit and AP Language. Language is the 11th grade, and Lit is the senior classes. And we have multiple options, multiple sections of some of these courses. So the AP Calc there's one section, but Kevin.
Is it mostly just for 11th and 12th grade?
No, actually, our AP US history class has many has a grip of sophomores, but most of them are for 11th and 12th grade. Yes.
And with the College Board's work on the pre-AP curriculum, we have several teachers interested in exploring that, which would be for sophomore levels.
And I would just like to compliment the work we're doing with getting our students into the colleges. And I mean, my nephew is a junior. He's already been accepted into Westfield State, into Framingham State as well, I believe. And the amount of credits these kids will have, the preparation they're getting, just like living that lifestyle ahead of time and getting that, it's incredible.
We have lots of juniors getting into 101 at HCC, which is really exciting. So I'd like to bring those numbers back to you next time.
Ms. Burks. So,
sorry, what that means, Mickey was asking me to define that. So we have juniors placing into that college level English class.
101 means you're not taking prerequisites.
Exactly. You're not taking 095 or a basic level class you'd expect at junior year.
Great. Ms. Burks.
So I want to address Dean. I just have a quick couple of comments. That's it. Mr. Gates, you are doing an amazing job. I think it needs to be public, the amount of work you do. I don't think you get enough recognition for the work you do. I've spoken to your families, to your students, and to your staff personally. And the way they speak of you, hands down, it's amazing. And we are blessed to have you in our system doing the job that you do, because you run this school and you run it really, really well, and you really need to be acknowledged for the amount of work you do for our students and our families. So I just wanted to take a minute because I've been saying it for months. I know you're not a person that likes to get called out, but what you do is amazing, and it's reflected in your students and your families and your staff. Your staff is happy. That speaks volumes, and they speak so positively about you and your leadership. I just wanted to acknowledge you because I think it's important to me that you be acknowledged for the work that you do. It's really important to me. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your kind words. Javon, do you have your hand up? Did you want to say something? You want to add on to that there?
Mr. Perez.
He did. He had his hand up. Thank
He's
you.
got a dissenting
And I
opinion.
really appreciate it.
Javon, share something different.
Well, the same thing that she was saying is just that he connects with the students on a better positive note. Like if he wants us to take control, he lets us take control, and he has like a big trust with us. So that's a.
Thank you. Miss Tensley Williams. Rosalie, we ain't there yet. We're no, not yet. We
Team
haven't
effort.
gotten-
Team effort.
She really wants to go over that packet once we're done with the other questions, but go ahead.
I read through this today, and it took a lot of work to put this together, and I am very impressed with this catalog. I really am, and thank you for all the work that you do. And also, I'm going to piggyback off of her. The dean, what's his name?
Mr. Gates.
Mr. Gates, he is an awesome person, and I would like to add, what about a meteorologist course at the school? That's a good course. We could add a meteorologist, and we could get some local Channel 40 people to come in and talk to the students, because that's I think that's awesome, and if you taught it, I would take it.
Mr. Wallahan.
Thank you. Let's go back to the graduation rates and the dropout rates.
Yeah.
I was looking for I like to compare those and see where we stack up with the state averages and the Gateway City averages. That's not on here. I know
I can get that for
the
you.
numbers are coming out.
Yeah.
You said, can you provide that?
Yeah, I could provide that to
So-
you. There's actually a place on the website, on the DESI website, that has them ranked. I can send that to you. It's a little tricky to find, but I'll
Okay.
send you all a
I'd like
copy.
to compare.
Sure.
Where we stand up.
Yeah, we're not
statewide.
We're not at the
and
bottom.
then
We're not at the
Gateway.
bottom anymore.
Okay, that's what I was
we're
hoping for.
like creeping up from the bottom.
Okay.
So I can send that to you.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep.
And Mr. Sheehan?
I'm just going to repeat something I've said in the past a lot. Two things. I think that AP courses are great, but I think where it really lies is dual enrollment. And I think that I've mentioned this before, that I think the College Board is a totally for-profit entity that only hurts students that aren't white. And the tests are set up for failure for anyone who doesn't have a very traditional high school education. And the fact that, speaking with Charlotte, our student rep, that she's going to leave Holyoke High School with at least 15 credits. I mean, it's amazing. And she she was probably just kind of in the infancy of the dual enrollment push. And I'm sure that she would have had twice the amount, knowing her, when she was leaving. So I think that's really where it is, especially for a lot of our students who are continuing their education at one of our public universities here in Massachusetts, because it's such a easy crossover with the articulation agreements, and I know many of the privates are doing that now. So I really think that is the focus. It needs to be the focus for a lot of students with that, because it's just a much different environment and a much more level playing field, I think, than just the chance of maybe scoring a grade on an AP test. I mean, I took the AP test and this was before AP classes were even at the high school, and only got a 2. That's bad, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a 2. But we had no AP classes, so it was just by chance, like, we were able to take them. But I mean, to charge students $95 to take a test that you may not get anything out of is crazy, and I know we have subsidies for that. More importantly, thinking about Dean and thinking about Perkins money, is there our shops have, our programs have changed over the time, but I mean, Perkins does have the innovation and modernization money available. I mean, I know that we're taking some baby steps here at Dean, and we're getting there and we're building up. But like, what's next? I mean, we look at other programs that have gotten the really unique programs in the area. I mean, LPVC has the precision machining program now. Westfield has aviation. I mean, what could be the technical or vocational program that really says that this is something that only Holyoke has? And it's not going to be paper making, but is there anything that we're looking at, that their long range plan that might be really innovative for the area, or just to support the workforce? I don't know if you read the Outlook articles in the paper yesterday, but there was the company in downtown Holyoke whose name recently changed from Central Mass Precision, and I wish I could remember their new name, but they're saying we have no workers and they're a precision machine shop. What are our plans?
Lori, do you want to handle that, or?
Sure.
Great.
Is this
Yeah,
on?
it's on.
Okay, so yes, one of the things we look at first of all is the regional blueprint.
Yep.
And that, as well as we have to balance it with student interest. Okay, so obviously the blueprint and labor market is the leading factor, especially in getting Chapter 74 designation. So my big thing when I come here is when I look around, and I know that we have a teacher shortage, a diverse teacher shortage. My first thing would be, if I could start a new shop, would be early childhood education. Not so much in creating daycare workers, but creating a pipeline. I've done this once before in the past, a pipeline to teacher education. Okay, so that what we could do is we could create our own teacher pool from folks that already have an investment in the city. It's our own homegrown, diverse pool that we can have. It's worked well in the past with Westfield State, with UMass, with Mount Holyoke over there. We've got a lot of people that we could partner with that, and I just see that as that's something I'm really excited about. But we do have, at Dean, we have the precision manufacturing, and we're looking forward to starting with a really talented teacher for next year. So we're going to be able to working at partnerships with that. We've got a long way to go, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there.
And is some of it, I mean, you are obviously the expert in vocational education, more so than I am. But is some of it, though, too, with reading some of these different programs around the country that have created this, some of the build it and they will come mentality, rather than the see what's there for the market, think out and build the program and know that you'll get students, or is it waiting to see what they tell you? Because when you get to think about it, someone else does it. You know what I mean? Like, right. I mean, it's Worcester Tech did vet, and now Monty Tech's doing vet. I mean, Sheila brought that program up there, but it's just how it's done with that. I mean, it's someone else is going to pick up aviation that's near an airport. I mean, what's the
right? I actually worked for Sheila for 8 years. Yeah. So, and yes, so we could jump on those whole bandwagons, but what do we need right here in Holyoke? What's most important for us? Do we need more veterinarians? I mean, we have to look at the blueprint for that. The diesel technology is big, right, in the labor market, but we have a problem drawing kids to that, right? So that's one of the lower enrolled shops that Dr. Mahoney was talking about, getting kids excited in that. Advanced manufacturing, we've had parents say, I don't want my kid working in a factory, and really letting them know that this is that place where science and technology come together to manufacture things, for everything, anything that is a part or a component. But it's really trying to get people to buy into it. So although the labor market says that's really what we need, getting kids in the classroom is another story. So we've got to hit them at a different angle.
And it sounds like, too, just from what you just said, it's getting the parents into the areas where students are working. Because a factory today is not a factory of even 10 years ago. And I think getting the parents, I mean, when you talk about, I think the reverse job shadowing is amazing. But you also need to job shadow to the parents, because when the kid's in 8th grade, showing them that this is what precision machining is. This is really the important thing, to show that it's not just widget making.
I would also just say that Al and Lori, we talked about the 8th to 9th grade transition. We've really tried to beef up the transition experiences that 8th graders have, so they can make really good choices. Kelly School was at Dean Campus today, getting a taste of every single one of the shops. So then when they decide, do I go North Campus or do I go Dean Campus, they have a better picture of what the Dean Campus is, just as they did when they were over at North Campus last week.
No, you had an even. I know you were late coming in because you were at the game, but today we had the spring, very small group of spring players from Venue School, and I would say it was a pretty even mix of people who indicated at that point in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade whether they were going to go to the Dean campus.
Right.
Yeah, I would just the one thing I'd say is like Dean is a viable school right now. I mean, it is, and it's at the almost at the point where it's going to be a full school to be able to do the things that we always that you see around the state in career technical programs. Mr. Gates deserves a lot of credit for that. Mr. Peterson deserves a lot of credit for that. Ms. Dennis, Dr. Mahoney, a lot of work has gone into Dean over the last 5 years. It is now going to be a viable school that should be able to deliver some of the things that we've long heard of, or I know of career technical schools doing for kids, and we're at that point. I know I'm not going to be here next year, but I do know that we've got a school now where it's a destination. People want to go there again, and I hear that from the 8th graders as they walk around. There is so much more buzz and interest there. That I think you're at the precipice of something very significant with Dean.
Yeah, I wouldn't use precipice because that's before you fall.
Okay.
but we're somewhere good. We're somewhere good.
Somewhere good, yeah.
Mr. Collmore?
Yeah, just talking about the Dean School, could we get a list of all the students that are working outside now? You mentioned carpentry, you mentioned other departments that are sending students to different job sites to work. We used to have that program quite a few years ago. Is it a program where they go to schools part-time and then go into the workforce? Or is it they're just assigned to that school?
So, no, you're right. So they would go, typically a student on co-op would come and stay for their morning classes, and then right before or after lunch they'll go off to their job, and they'll spend the rest of the school day at their job, and then probably some hours after that getting credit for their shop, because that's during their shop period, and also earning their money at the same time. But I could get you a list of those names if you'd like them.
Not names, I just want to know a number of that is out there in the workforce helping our school.
Yep, I just sent that to Judy Taylor, like in detail, so I can send it to you folks.
Good, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Collmore. Not Mr. Kershane.
You can call me Niles. That's
Niles.
Fine. That's fine. So,
Mr. Niles.
I haven't been in the schools. My daughter graduated 2 years ago, and I've been on school committee now. It's year 5, I think, kind of in tandem with Dr. Reich, and I really enjoyed the opportunity to come tour the schools. I'd really like to set that up again and get the school committee to tour the schools again. And one of the things that when I came on board 5 years ago, it was kind of Dean, like just completely broken down and then coming back together. When we toured the school of Dean, the reputation of Dean really coming back. And I remember walking the halls of Dean a couple of years ago, so quiet, so kids on task, incredibly so. And you've done a fantastic job. As that reputation has improved North Campus, I experienced with my own 2 kids increasing disruption, increasing issues, and Erin, welcome to, is she here?
Nope, she's gone.
Okay, well, welcome to my world. But she's, okay, so anyway, long and short, I've been singing the same song that Erin just sang before she departed, that this is the reputation issue. This is what is stopping some people from choosing Holyoke High School now, and now maybe considering Dean as the better alternative of the two, which was never the case 8 years ago, 9 years ago. That wasn't what people would do. And I'd like to have the opportunity to tour the schools. I'm very concerned not about our graduation rates. I mean, these are awesome things that have happened. I'm excited about all these new opportunities. My children had great opportunities. I'm finding that people are not choosing the high school in the numbers they had been choosing the high school previously. And I really, we talked about, we had a retreat, we talked about if we had some extra money coming in because of the new state laws coming in, where would we put that money? And I'd like to have the opportunity to get into the schools again and really have some frank conversations about how do we change this perception. How do we get people to embrace the high school as they had? And I will bring up, the first few years of my kids at the high school, there was no in-house suspension facility, personnel. There wasn't. Yet there were these new laws that said, well, we can't suspend, we can't expel. So, so all of a sudden, every other disciplinary action, you're going to stay after school, you're going to have detention. Now, what if I don't show up to detention? Then what will I have? You will have nothing. Okay, so all of a sudden, detention is not a deterrent. So a lot of tools were taken out of the tool belt, but I feel like I'm behind now. I don't really know what's going on. So I think I want to see for myself what's going on, and I want to help get that reputation back. Counseling. And she shared with me, our high school representative shared with me, her counselor was gone all year. Okay, so she got into a fantastic school, but she let me know her counselor was not there all year for her. Okay, I think she was out on maternity. You have one counselor out on maternity.
Back, we had a long-term sub.
Okay.
So,
how old was that sub?
brand new.
How old was she?
I don't know.
I think she was 19 or 20 years old.
Mr. Kershane.
No. No?
We can't
Okay.
ask age.
Okay. Oh, we can't ask the age? Oh, okay. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. Well, sorry, I apologize.
Or status of leave.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Well, it's just all I'm saying is that's an area that I think we really need to invest in, because to hear that story, I was very upset to hear that. So I apologize if I crossed the line over age or et cetera. But
Okay.
I didn't name any names.
No, thank
Okay,
God.
so anyway, all right, I'm off my soapbox, but I really like to get into schools and help and see what's going on. And really,
So Niles, feel free to email me when you're available. I will take.
can we have a group of us go?
Oh, sure,
Because,
sure.
You know, there were classrooms I went into when there were 3 or 4 of us. I forget who
Absolutely.
was with me, but there were some classes. I mean, when I was in a classroom, there were 4 people dressed to the nines in suits, et cetera, and we were all dressed like we were officials. And some classes were like, whoa. And other classes were like, well, whatever. It's like we weren't there.
So what we could do is I'll have Dr. Zreich send us some dates, and we can all put in when we can be a part of it. And that way we can make it like a group thing, even if it's 2 separate groups coming. Mr. Perez.
We do have that upcoming. We're gonna do that again in March, right?
Yeah, the students do like a Leaders Leading Leaders tour, so that's something that on the Dean campus, our student ambassador group, we can make sure that there's an invitation for the school committee on that March date.
That's awesome. Thank you. And Miss Tensley Williams, you're closing the show.
I take offense to people's mentality about Dean. In the past, Dean was always a great school. Both of my sons graduated from Dean, and everything they did in life, they excelled. And people was a little ignorant the way they thought, because, oh, that's the last step from going to jail. That is not true. It's a technical school. My kids went there because I wanted them to learn a trade. And like every job they ever took, they excelled in the job, and they went to Dean. And Dean was a great school, and Dean is going to still continue to be a great school. Let's make it a matter of record.
All right, so thank you guys for your presentation. I guess we're going to move on to discussion of 2021 program of studies. Rosalie, this is your chance. Here's the book.
Oh,
Oh, okay, great.
I'm good. I'm good. Yes. Yes,
All
I
right.
do. Very impressed.
So is there anyone that's going to talk about this program of studies, or you're just going to have us look at the book and we can ask questions or make a comment?
Steve, I would just turn, Dr. Stryker, I would just turn to you. And,
I would just see if there's any questions about the program
yeah,
of
it's your
studies.
agenda
It
item,
is
so-
similar to last year. There are probably. Do you want to talk about just briefly the changes? But I would be brief, and then if anybody has any questions.
You'll see a lot of similar content to last year. You will see the courses that we have and some tweaks to policies. I think the big change that you'll see if you're comparing to last year's program of study is really in the languages section. We've combined world language and ESL into one language department, and that is with the goal of being really strategic about aligning on what it takes to teach a student a language and making sure that our English language development course number 1 aligns to our Spanish one and aligns to our French one, because language acquisition is similar across different languages. The skills and the strategies are the same. So that's the big shift you'll see. Other than that, there are numerous courses here, and it's possible that some of them, if students don't elect them, that some of them won't run. But otherwise, our expectation is these are the course offerings, and they're mostly the same as they were last year.
Wait, does anybody have any questions? Mr. Kershane.
Sorry, I'll be very short. I just happened to notice that the Dean Freshman English and History only offer ethnic studies. Why is it that they only offer that one class?
I think that what we are, ethnic studies had never been offered at the Dean campus before last year. We are piloting it as a 100% for the 9th grade. In part, that is because we're doing it for the first time. We want, it's a simpler task if we have a teacher teaching one course. So we're looking at it for last year, this year, and next year, and then we'll reevaluate whether or not it's the right decision for our students and supports them. We have, as Al mentioned, said that sophomores have choice, and we're paying attention to what sophomores choose. This year it broke 50-50. Next year it could break 25-75, and we would probably look to honor student choice in the sophomore year. Okay.
Mr. Perez?
I'm in one of those ethnic studies classes, but we only have it for one time, and I feel like it's like clamped up because there's too many students inside there.
So you want it for more times? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because there's like too many kids inside there, and it's like in a rush.
Okay. Well, there's good feedback. Anybody else have any questions? No? Okay, I have a comment, and it'll be quick. We're looking at page 91, Special Education Therapeutic Intervention Program. I just need a clarification. Are we saying that the students in the Therapeutic Intervention Program in grades 9 through 10 are only able to elect from the options that they have below, and for grades 11 through 12, they're only allowed to pick from the options below, as compared to the other students who have bookload of stuff to pick from?
Right. So great question. And I would just note that those are the 4 core classes, and then it is the 5th class is a class that has been designed to help with their specific social and emotional skills and their ability to become more self-regulating and more self-directed learners. They would continue to take 2 electives in addition to these 5 classes. So. And those and does that make sense?
No, because
Okay,
number
so-
one,
so if you
under
look
grade
at-
9 through 10, there
Yeah.
is no
There-
interpersonal skills. It's a seminar survey. What is a seminar survey?
So it's It is essentially it is similar to our freshman seminar class, and the topics are generally selected based on the students who are in the class, so that it's very personalized. So it may be around building positive relationships, or it could be around anger management. Teachers have discretion to develop curriculum around the student needs. But after those 5 classes, students would be able to opt into an art class or a PE class or a business class or madrigals or chorus. And some of these classes are also very much, we're trying to mainstream our teachers. So Ryan Appleby is co-teaching a science class. Ryan Appleby is our math science tip teacher. He's co-teaching a science class with Aaron Lawler. And 3 or 4 students from the TIP program are in that freshman environmental science class with him. So no, we're not limiting them to just these classes. These are 5 of the 7 classes that they would take. 2 of those classes would be of their choice.
2 of their choice from this book?
Yes.
Anywhere in this book?
Well, they wouldn't choose. They could choose a second English course, but generally they would be looking at choosing, those classes that fall into outside the 4 core subjects.
So if they wanted to do ethnic studies, they could?
We could, if they were ready to take a mainstream ethnic studies, history, or English class as freshmen or sophomores, 100%. But the English and social studies that is taught directly by the TIP folks may pull from ethnic studies, but they are not ethnic studies classes.
And then for the Dean campus.
Yeah.
Sorry. What shops are they able to choose from?
Well, the therapeutic intervention program is based on the North Campus. So
that one's in the North Campus.
Right. So that we don't have a TIP program on the Dean campus. We only have it on the North Campus. So
if a student from the TIP program wanted to do a trade, pick a trade over here, they couldn't unless you guys remove them from the TIP program, or?
Well, we don't have a TIP classroom on the Dean campus. If we had a student in the TIP program who wanted to take a Dean class, we would gather the team and make a determination as to whether or not what supports they would need to do that, and were we able to provide them over at the Dean campus. And remember that I would tell you that in terms of how we select students for the Dean campus, if a TIP student if an 8th grader who's in the TIP program chose the Dean campus, and his kind of score, grades, attendance, discipline, interview, counselor recommendation was as strong as anyone else's, he would go in there, and we would have to figure out a way to make that work for that student. We did have a student who was in the TIP program move over to the Dean campus, and after 2.5 months, he decided that wasn't what he wanted to do, and he's moved back to the North
I
campus.
just want to make sure that we're giving them opportunities.
We're doing our very best.
We're not just keeping them where we want them.
Yep.
Okay.
We're doing our very best to do that.
Any other questions? No, we're going to move along. Thank you guys for coming.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. If anybody has any questions about my notes, I can take them. Otherwise, I wasn't going to read them to you.
The superintendent's and food service.
Looks good.
Looks good. All right. So moving on to new business. Minutes of meetings recommendation that the school
Move to approve November 18th and December 16th.
All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Great. Motion passes. Any old business? No. Any announcements? Other than we're having a joint city council school committee meeting on Wednesday.
All right.
That's right.
5:30 it starts.
5:30. And the joint council is at 6. Any other?
No.
Wednesday at 6. All right. Any other announcements? At city council chambers. That would be. Yes, it is.
There's such comfortable seats there.
Yes. So, with
Wanna go back?
nothing else,
Excuse me, one more
okay.
thing.
Okay, motion to. Oh, you have something.
One more thing.
Go
yeah,
ahead,
just,
Mr.
Just
Willoughby.
on Holyoke High School, the updates, just on the safety for the sporting events. Any update on those, or any new policies, or?
Yeah, so we have. I should. Dr. Mahoney just stepped up,
Sorry.
but I can. No, that's all right. That's all right. The issues we've had have been specifically surrounding Springfield games, and so we've had an elevated police presence for those games. Holyoke High was at Central tonight for basketball. They had a huge police presence there for that game. That's where Dr. Mahoney was coming from. We've also disciplined anybody who was involved in the altercation. Including we're just asking. They're asking about school, the basketball safety. I just was talking about the police presence, the move to discipline people who were involved in the altercation. Police have been following up with the adults involved in that melee. I don't know if you want to add anything about the basketball safety.
Well, I would add that we took pretty extraordinary steps when we were playing Springfield schools, because that seems to be that is the nut in terms of the tension. Tonight we were over at for the remaining Springfield games, we sold limited amounts of tickets at both schools, so 200 tickets per school, current students and family and senior citizens only. And then we had increased police presence. So I was a little late tonight because I went over to Central to make sure things were set there. They had, and we used metal detectors and wands. In Holyoke, we had the support of Holyoke Police Department and the State Police, along with school staff doing that. In Springfield, that is a common. So their staff, they have security staff, and so their staff are running it. There's a police presence at the Central game, and as far as I know, there were no issues. I was to get called, and so I left my phone on, but just not here on that. And that's where we are. I think that I think we're past kind of the foolishness. But I don't know.
You never know.
Right, you don't. And I'm not saying we definitely are, but it definitely, the Commerce game, there didn't feel there was no thing, and at even in the Central game tonight, there was no kind of sense of anything crackling at that point.
This is not like a problem just for this city and this location. I know that there's an incident over in Pennsylvania, but Upper Darby High School, Pennsylvania. Same thing happened. There was a brawl in the stands. Okay, it wasn't even the students, so they shut down the games. Moving forward for the, you have to have a guest list of who's coming to the games, and then the students have to sit in a certain section, and the students have to provide their IDs to go in to the games. So the old-fashioned concept of a high school game where the community comes together and roots for the team, and there's sportsmanship on both sides. Those things are kind of going away, unfortunately. So it's not an incident just in Holyoke. So I'm just kind of want to just make sure that the programs go on as scheduled, hopefully. But if future things arise, that we have a game plan just to move forward.
And just so the school committee knows, we typically when we have varsity games, the freshman teams play at the alternate site. The freshman game was canceled that we were going to host this afternoon, but it was canceled because the Central team had been kind of decimated by the flu. So it was not canceled for it was not canceled for any safety reasons. It was canceled because they didn't have enough healthy kids to field the team.
Ms. Burks.
Thank you.
Just want to say I was at the last game, the home game. I have to give credit where credit's due. Between the state police, the Holyoke police, and also the Holyoke Public Schools employees, It was locked down. I mean, they knew something was going to happen. They were on top of it. Everybody was safe. They handled it really, really well. I happen to be one of those people that, I didn't mind the wands, and I also didn't mind the metal detectors. Didn't mind the police presence. I knew every kid walking in was going to be safe. When there was an issue, they responded, and they responded quickly and justly. So yeah, kudos for you guys for doing a really good job with that.
And I would just note that when we had that fight at the Central game a few weeks ago, we did have metal detectors, and we were wanting kids. So we had taken those steps. It was kind of a flash moment of two players losing their temper and then spilling into it. Yeah. So,
Mr. Collimore?
Yeah, I was at that game,
he's at every game.
at the Central game, and I want to thank Dr. Mahoney and the whole staff of people that were there because they handled it perfectly. People came out of the stands and started fighting. The students were fighting, and our staff did the best thing ever by separating them and sending them into the locker rooms out of the way so no one would get hurt. And the best thing was to cancel the game. It was a hard decision by administration with fans that wanting to see the Central game and to cancel it. But for the safety of the students, the safety of the fans, that was the best move I've seen in many, many years watching sports, because maybe you don't realize it. If they had played that game, the teams that caused the problem, it was in the JV game, right, would have to be supervised in the locker room because they all came on one bus to the game, and they just couldn't separate them. So the separation was a very, very important thing that had to be discussed before started the game. And I'm glad Dr. Mahoney and his staff did an excellent job that night. It was the right thing to do, and it was the right thing to do on the Saturday afterwards to have it in the gym without any parents at all in the gym, because it worked out very, very well. And I think it was an incident that happened on the court. It wasn't an incident that happened in the stands. And the officials were there, not just him, but the police and things like that were right there a moment that this happened. And I think, like I said before, it was handled perfectly on how that situation was handled.
Thank you so much for all you guys do. So, without further ado, is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? All those in favor? Any opposed?